quorum. All right, calling to order. I don't have my agenda now, it's up there. But MCC meeting for February 10th, 2016. This is our regular meeting. We'll start with council member introductions. Thank you, Dan. Starting on my left.
Dan Haggerty.
Claire Toutant.
Dave Olson.
Chris Johnson. Aaron Deinzer is en route from Novato. Laura Stein will be here shortly, as will Lisa Ketchum. Apologize for the
Awesome. We need 3 more chairs.
1, 2. Yes, I will give.
I'm happy to stand.
I will give up my chair. I will gladly give up my chair. All right, let's have Board of Supervisors report is next on the agenda. I'd like to introduce Supervisor Horsley's newest aide, Ellie Dahlman. Ellie?
Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Midcoast Community Council and community members. My name is Elizabeth Dahlman, and as many of you know, I recently stepped into Nicholas Calderon's position with Supervisor Horsley's office, and I'm very excited to be here this evening to share Supervisor's report with you. So the first item is Murata Road. The Murata Road erosion emergency came upon us all quite quickly, and it's one of those things that does need immediate response. And Supervisor Horsley is very pleased that the county and the city of Half Moon Bay were able to work together to respond quickly to this emergency. The short-term solution consisted of adding riprap or rocks to the erosion to stop the erosion. And while it is a short-term solution, that part has been completed. The county is working on developing a long-term solution as we speak. So then the second item on the list is the 7th Street near Highway 1. The white fence there at the end of 7th Street has been removed and bollards were installed. And the project resulted in a really nice improvement to public access so that people are able to view the beautiful view there at the end of the street. So we're excited to share that with you all. In addition, we also were able to hear back about the 16th Street crossing. We recently learned that the request for funding from the Transportation Authority's Measure A for pedestrian and bicycle improvements was unfortunately not approved, but we will continue thinking about other opportunities for funding for this project. But unfortunately, that specific item did not make it above the cutoff line. But we will, as I mentioned, continue thinking about additional funding sources to make that project happen. The next item is an update on the vacation rental ordinance. The County Council is working to finalize a draft of the vacation rental ordinance, and the plan is to hold 2 additional public hearings, one on the Midcoast here as well as one in the South Coast in Pescadero, to review the draft ordinance with the community. And Supervisor Horsley is hopeful that the Midcoast Community Council would be interested in co-sponsoring the public hearing. We're looking at sometime in March, but I'd be happy to
that'd be great.
speak with you after the meeting to set up details.
Great.
But yeah, we're really excited to be close to having a draft ordinance that can be presented to the community for final feedback before it continues through the process. The next item is a brief update on Surfers Beach. So the protection at Surfers Beach has been completed, as some of you may know, and we're excited that it was completed before the current El Nino storm began, so that it didn't create additional damage that could have significantly impacted the use of the road. Weather is driving the completion date for the walkway and the stairway for that project, so we hope that it will be completed by summer.
I'll interrupt and say that both of the footings for the stairway at pretty much the old location of access are in place. They put the bottom footing in last night.
Great. Excellent. And finally, the last update I have is regarding the Pedro Point Headlands land transfer, which was an informational item at the Board of Supervisors meeting this past Tuesday. The memo is available online, but briefly, San Mateo County staff are reviewing documents to prepare a staff report for the Board of Supervisors regarding the land transfer. And I did share the memo website link with you all, so that may be something you'd put on the website.
Sure.
Potentially.
So this was a transfer of about 200 acres, is that right?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look back and,
It's the entire property that the Pacifica Land Trust was the steward of, west of Highway 1, except for the chunk that's already owned by Caltrans.
Right.
And it's also funding to assist the city of Pacifica in the buying of the coal property, which provides the access road from behind the Ace Hardware into the property.
Right, so this land transfer protects that land, but we're still missing the key piece to enable the trail from Pacifica to,
Pacifica has bought the property. I mean, they haven't title transferred yet, but they have agreed to buy the property. Seller has agreed to sell, and Todd Horsley has agreed to help fund that.
excellent.
And I don't think the funding has actually gone through the Board of Supervisors yet. That was also on the agenda, I think, but I don't know if it was the first reading or the final.
yeah, I'm not familiar. I'll have to look at that and get back to you. But finally, I just want to say I am, again, really excited to be here with you all, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all and being Supervisor Horsley's representative here on the Midcoast.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda for tonight is approving the minutes for our January 27, 2016 meeting. Do I hear a motion on that?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. 4-0 passes. Great. Okay, closing consent agenda. Moving on to the regular agenda. So tonight,
Are you going to do public comment?
oh yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Ha, forgot about public comment. Sorry about that, everybody. Going to open it up for public comment. This is public comment on anything not on the agenda tonight. So if there's some other, if you'd like to talk about Pedro Point land transfer or short-term rental ordinance or something like this, this is your chance to get your comment on the record. Do I have anybody that would like to speak to an item not specifically on the agenda tonight? Okay, great. Public comment is closed. Did I hear an O? No? Okay. Does council have any announcements they would like to make? Okay, great. Okay, now we will move on to item 4A on the regular agenda, which is an introduction to mid-pen housing. Tonight we have Felix Al Young, Jan Lindenthal, and Nevada Merriman. Yes, Nevada Merriman from Mid-Pen Housing. They are here tonight to introduce themselves to the community. As I'm sure that you're all aware because you're here, the 11-acre affordable housing site in Moss Beach is up for sale. That's the piece of property at the end of Carlos Street. It's up for sale. Mid-Pen has an option right now. They have not purchased the property yet. No, nothing has been signed. They do not own the property yet. So as part of their due diligence, the council invited them to come and reach out to the public, introduce themselves to the public, explain their process, and hear what the public has to say in response. So Jan Lindenthal, who is the Vice President, one second, Jan, I know you already know, Vice President Real Estate Development, will give a brief presentation introducing you to Mid-Pen. After that, council will have clarifying questions, then we'll open it up for public comment. Jan?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight to speak to all of you, introduce ourselves to you. We appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight. I wanted to start out by giving you just a little bit of background about Mid-Pen Housing. So we are a nonprofit, affordable housing developer. We're based here in San Mateo County. We were founded in 1970 by a group of community activists, people that were concerned about affordable housing. That was back in 1970. And now here we are 45 years later, and it's still, if not the most pressing issue, one of the most pressing issues facing the county. We have deep San Mateo County roots, not just in terms of where our offices are based, but we've developed 24 properties in San Mateo County over our 45-year history, and 3 of those are here on the coast side. One of the things that we think has been really key to our success as a nonprofit is our ability to work collaboratively with all of the communities that we work in. And so that tonight really is the first step for us with respect to this community, to be able to hear from you. We're really interested in hearing what's on your mind. And also to be able to understand some of the issues and concerns that you have. I mentioned that we're an affordable housing developer, but we're also an owner. So we own everything that we build. We don't sell any of our properties. So we're a long-term owner. We're a long-term member of the communities where we have developed our housing. That means that we're designing for the long term. We're building for the long term in terms of the quality of materials that we're using. And it also means that we're neighbors for the long term. And that's really important as it relates to any kind of a new opportunity that we may be looking at, because it's really important that we get it right the first time, because we're going to be here for the long term. So that means we really need to understand the issues, and we need to be factoring all of that input into the planning that we do. It also means that as a manager of our properties, that the people that work at a Mid-Penn housing community are Mid-Penn employees. So they're stationed at the properties, whether they're our property manager, our maintenance person, they're all Mid-Penn employees. And that accountability is really important to us, that you could go to any Mid-Penn property and the person that you're going to speak to there is a Mid-Penn employee, everyone from the person who lives on site to the maintenance person. Just one other thing I wanted to mention is that in addition to placing a really high priority on being good neighbors, and I've been involved in affordable housing my whole professional career, so more than 25 years. And I've met with a lot of community groups that have concerns, maybe not just about affordable housing, but about other issues that may be impacted by a proposed project. And one of the things that's foremost in our minds is that whole point I was making about getting it right the first time, and how it's really important that we understand the issue so that any plan that we put forth responds to that. Because if we can't afford to make a mistake and then we all have to live with it. We're not like a for-profit developer where we're going to sell whatever it is we build and you'll never see us again. So just underscore that point. But the other thing that is really, I think, a testimony to the commitment that we have to the work that we do is that we're really concerned about and committed to making sure that our residents are well taken care of. And so to that end, we're surveying our residents every year and making sure that we're satisfying their needs at the property, that they believe it's well maintained, that they believe there's adequate parking, that they believe that their maintenance work orders are responded to in a timely manner. And so that's that resident satisfaction bullet point up there, where we participate as part of a national group to get this input, and we get exemplary ratings when we're compared to national property managers. Another thing that really sets us apart is that we provide services to our residents on site. And that's something that certainly market rate developers typically don't do that, and a lot of nonprofit developers aren't able to do that. But that's something that we believe it's core to our mission, is how we talk about it. And the programs that we've developed are very thoughtful and intentional, and really designed to meet the needs of our residents. So in a family community, it would be an academic-based after-school program. So at Main Street Park in Half Moon Bay, there's an after-school program there where the kids are focused on literacy and academic support. And then the other thing that we're doing through that program is connecting to the school. So making sure that anything that we're doing in that after-school program is coordinated with the lessons that the kids are having at school. In our senior communities, it's all about helping seniors age in place so that they have the resources and support to be able to do that. And then in our permanent supportive housing projects, whether it's developmentally disabled or whatever kind of special needs project, we're providing those services on site. And in addition to our employees providing those direct services on site, we're also partnering with community groups. So it might be the food bank, it might be the Girl Scouts, it might be a financial literacy program that would come in. So though we also are partnering with those community partners as well to bring services into the property and make sure that we're connected to the community. So where are we now and where are we not? So Chris mentioned that we do not own the property. We are at the beginning of our due diligence. That's why we're here. We are really interested in hearing what you all have to say tonight. Felix has talked to many of you, I'm guessing, on the phone. So it will be good to hear first person some of your thoughts and concerns and what you see as the issues that we should be aware of. And I would just say to you that I hope that our being here tonight is a demonstration to you of our commitment to listen and to really understand the issues and to work in collaboration with you. We would like to invite you to an open house, March 16th at the Farallon View Elementary School. And this is not an open house where we will be saying, ta-da, here's our plan for the property. Rather, it will be an open house for us to dialogue further about some of the things that I'm sure you're going to bring up tonight. We will be taking input from which we would develop any plan that we might come forward with. So it's really the first step in that process of really hearing from you and being able to talk with folks one-on-one about some of the concerns, visions, ideas that you have for the site. So we hope that you'll be able to attend 6:30 at the Farallon View Elementary School, March 16th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Do members of the council have any clarifying questions?
I was
Claire?
just curious when you mentioned various services and collaborations with other community groups for your residents. Would you anticipate that any of those would be also available to the other people in the community outside of your housing development?
They can be. So, yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, for example, we have a property in Half Moon Bay that's a senior campus. And there are services available on site there that all of the seniors, even in some of the adjacent properties that we don't own, take advantage of. So yes, if there was interest in that, we could make that available.
Dave?
One question I'm sure somebody else would ask, but I'll go ahead and ask it up front. What is the funding source for the initial stages, and are these properties typically self-sustaining, or are they subsidized over their lifetime?
That's a good question. So the financing of affordable housing, we could be here till midnight.
Yeah, I was looking for a summary.
The Cliff Notes version. The properties have to be financially sustainable. So any community that we develop is designed so that it is financially sustainable. However, as you might imagine, so there's some schools, so some perceptions of affordable housing out there. Some people will refer to it as low-cost housing, and I always counter that by saying it doesn't cost us any less to build our housing than it does market rate housing. Sometimes it's more because the community expectations, the green building standards, the other requirements that get put on affordable housing projects can even make it cost more than market rate housing. But, so the costs are here, but the rents are here. So there's a big gap between what it costs and what the rents can support. So in a regular market rate apartment, you're charging much higher rent so you can support a lot of debt. And that's how you finance your construction. In our case, we're supporting very little debt. And so we have to leverage public subsidy in order to be able to bridge that gap. And so typically that public subsidy comes in a couple of different sources. It comes from local government, from the county, in this case, County of San Mateo. And it also comes from tax credits, the low-income housing tax credit, which is a federal program allocated by a state agency here in California. And so that would be the primary way that we would propose to finance the project. And then we would be looking, any project that we do. And then we're always looking down the road to make sure that the property is financially sustainable for the long term. So the rent's coming in and the expenses are sufficient to ensure that we can maintain the property, that we can fund our reserves and keep the properties well maintained over time.
Thanks. If I can interrupt for just a second. Coming around are the speaker slips and the sign-up sheet. If you would like to make a comment, please fill out one of the speaker slips, take a speaker slip, pass it along. The sign-up sheet is coming along right behind that. If you'd like more information on this, like to be kept up to date, please put your name on the sign-up sheet with some way we can reach you, email address.
Might mention there's a few more spots along this way.
And people in the hallway, I know it's tough. You're welcome to come and stand along this interior wall in here, maybe get a closer view. It could be a little easier to hear. Okay, Claire, did you have any more questions?
No, I responded well to that. Thank you.
Dave, did you? Dan?
Yes, for let's say a typical two-bedroom unit, what is the expected number of cars to go along with that?
That's a good question. We would assume 2 cars for the way we, I mean, obviously the parking has to meet whatever the local government's requirements are. That's a minimum. But then what we assume, sometimes the local government's requirements are less than what we think we need. So this was what I was saying about how it doesn't serve us to not provide enough parking. Because if there's a problem down the road, it's our neighbors that are gonna be impacted, and they're our neighbors, and nobody wants to have an argument with your neighbor, right? That's very unpleasant. So what we typically assume is 1 space for a 1-bedroom, 2 for a 2-bedroom, and 2 for a 3-bedroom. And we find that that's adequate at our communities. But in this case, that's one of the things that we would need to look at. So it may be different here in Moss Beach than it is in, San Mateo or some other community. So that's something that we would have to study.
Has that been adjusted with the high level of rental rates and home costs? I think that typically more and more people are sharing units, so now you're
No.
factoring in more cars.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing
for
about
now.
affordable housing. It's heavily regulated, and because we're managing it and we're living on site, we know everyone who's living there, and we have maximum occupancy standards. We have house rules. So you can't have what you might have in an unrestricted market rate apartment where, multiple families are living there in order to be able to afford the rent, and then you have 4 cars because you've got 2. That doesn't happen in our communities because that's not allowed as a condition of our lease. They would be in violation if that happened and risk losing their housing.
So you're proposing 100% affordable housing?
At this point, we're not proposing anything. We're listening,
Okay.
and then if we move to the next step, then we would come back and get more feedback on what we're thinking, and it would be an iterative process, is what I would imagine.
Lisa, do you have any questions? Jan, Claire? Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Well, you mentioned the mix or the unknown mix at this point of affordable and other housing. Do you actually develop housing that's not affordable?
We don't,
Okay, so that's not in your usual presentation.
no. This property, the way that it was originally entitled, was not 100% affordable. It had a 35% affordable requirement. So theoretically, a market rate developer could develop it, and they would have to build that percentage.
I see.
But that's not something that we're looking at doing. But I just wanted to be clear that when you said, are you proposing a 100% affordable, at this point, we're not at that stage yet. So that's what I was trying to clarify. I don't want it to be perceived that somehow we're proposing something before we've had a chance to hear from folks. Is that?
What-
Does that mean it can be 100% affordable?
It could be,
Oh,
yes.
Any other questions? No? Jan, you mentioned there are 3 properties on the coast side that MidPen has developed. What are those 3 properties?
Main Street Park, Half Moon Village, and Moon Ridge.
Okay, thank you. I believe all of those are in City of Half Moon Bay.
Moon Ridge is actually just outside the technical city limits. then we would be happy to host folks at those properties for a tour anytime.
I'm wondering if you have developed projects in unincorporated areas before.
Yes, yeah, in Sonoma County right now, and obviously Moon Ridge. Our two that come to mind, also Colma. We have a property in Colma.
Okay. You noted property operations and resident satisfaction services that you provide, and those sound great. And you mentioned that some of those services might be available to non-residents of the Mid-Penn project. So that sounds good, and I believe that the people that live there, it does seem like a good situation for them. My question for you is, what and how do you add benefit and improve and maintain the quality of life for the residents that were living there before the project was built? What do you do for the surrounding community, rather than just the residents of the project that you're building?
Right. That depends on the specific project and location and what the issues are. It could be, in a particular community, it might be traffic improvements that are needed, that we fund as part of our project. It could be improving storm drainage, that's impacting adjacent properties. Our project I mentioned in Sonoma County right now, part of the scope of that project is putting in a bike trail and also making drainage improvements on the adjacent property. So we're correcting a condition that's there now, as an example. So that's something that, again, in listening to the feedback and thoughts of the community, that's the kind of thing that we would keep in mind, is what are some of the things that we could do if the property was to be developed that would benefit the neighbors. It could be a community center where there's some services available there that other folks could benefit from. It could be maybe there's some public access on the property, or, I don't know what it would be. That's what we want to hear more about.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else on the council have any questions for Jan, Nevada, or Felix? Okay, great. Thank you, Jan. I would now like to open it up for public comment. If anybody has a speaker slip that they filled out, could you please pass it to Dan there on the end? And I will call the names of people as I receive the speaker slips. While I'm waiting for the speaker slips, I just want to add a couple of words. One, these microphones are not for amplification purposes, as we can all hear in this room, but they are connected to the TV camera. So in order for your comments to be heard for anybody watching the video, you need to come and stand at the podium and speak into the microphone. When you come to the podium to speak, if you could please state your name and this town that you live in. And then the last thing I want to say, and I know this doesn't need to be said, but I really, actually, this council are veterans of several of these types of meetings where we have a piece of property that is very important to the community, that is potentially going to be developed. Most recently, Valimar Bluffs. I know this is an emotional issue, and I encourage people to be passionate about it. Where I would like to draw the line is, let's maintain professional, respectful decorum here. Okay, this is a meeting of adults in which we're trying to discuss an important issue for the community. It's not going to be, there's going to be no benefit to outbursts or harsh words and negative feelings. Again, passion, bring your passion, please. As the council will concur, I'm a very passionate person, sometimes to my own detriment. So I embrace your passion, but let's keep it professional and respectful. Let's respect everybody's time and sensibilities here. We're trying to work something out. We're trying to, well, actually, we're not trying to work something out. We're trying to hear what the community has to say, and you're best heard if we can just keep the decorum at a professional level. Thank you. I know I didn't need to say that, but I just, like with the TV camera, I felt like it needed to be said just in case. Okay, let's get going. Mark Verlander, come on down. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up, Mark. Again, for those of you that came late, normally we're pretty informal at the Midcoast Community Council, but because we have so many people here tonight, I'm going to limit public comment for each person to 3 minutes per person, so that we can get everybody in on a timely basis. Dave is going to have a timer going. You know, when you hear the timer, you know, I'm not going to, okay, Steve, cut off the microphone. Just please try to wrap up your thoughts so that the next person can have their turn. Okay, Mark, thank you for waiting.
Right here?
Yes, right at that podium.
Microphone
Right.
here?
And one last comment. Per our incredible audio and video technician, Steve Brown over here, try not to grab the podium because it rustles a little and it interferes with the sound when you try to hear the video. And I definitely want people who can't come tonight to hear everybody's comment clearly. Thank you, Mark.
Great. Hi, my name's Mark Verlander. I live in the back of Montera on Date Street. And I first heard about this project, I think, a few weeks ago. As far as I know, it's 147 units or thereabouts being proposed.
There is no proposal right now.
Okay, that's.
There is no design, there is no plan.
That's the potential.
Yes.
Okay. Well, acting on that as a potential, I'm just wondering how those numbers were arrived at. They were circulated around the community. I think a lot of people here may have heard numbers like that. That looks like a very small lot to be able to fit that amount of units on. I have been down to the senior center, which I think is a nice center down there, but it's really jammed into that community. It's really changed the whole neighborhood there. If you're driving down the street, there's one-story houses, small houses on one side of the street. There's a three-story building on the other side with big covered parking lots that are lit up at night. Looks like they're throwing floodlights onto the houses next to them. It looks like a commercial type of community that you'd see in downtown Palo Alto. I think it's completely changed the character of Half Moon Bay. So I'm not against senior housing, but I think it's was really shoehorned into that lot. And I'd hate to see that same thing happen in Montera. Moss Beach, I think that's almost a bluff that should be preserved as open space. And it's certainly one of the most dangerous sections of Highway 1. I can't imagine the level of traffic that would have to go in there and all of the roads that would have to be developed. It's just not an appropriate size project for that space. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate your comments. Next, Richard Graves. Oh, I'm sorry, Gates. Yes, yeah. You are correct, Richard. It is Gates.
For me to speak in this public forum, I have been, it's going to be repetitious in a way because I hear myself having repeatedly said these things I'm about to say and having repeatedly written emails, both to Supervisor Horsley's office and emails and conversations with Felix. And I will have to say that in each case, in letters or emails to Supervisor Horsley, he practices selective reading, and what I've experienced with Felix is selective hearing. So I really don't see a dialogue. If you say to him, this will destroy this community, I don't care at what portion of these numbers, it suggested 60 to build it in phases of 60. At their numbers, that's approximately 200 people, approximately 200 cars. And in Supervisor Horsley's memo, received an email, he said that Midpin builds quality communities. And my response to Supervisor Horsley and to Felix is, thank you, but we already have a wonderful community. And to build your community on top of our community destroys everything. It is a coastal community of single-family homes. It's been there for a long time. And it is a beach community. It has small roads. I don't understand if they're saying that they're going to help with the traffic What is it that they intend to do to our community in terms of those roads? What is going to happen to Highway 1? It does not belong there. There are no jobs. So where this needs to be built is where they have already built projects, where there are already multi-unit buildings, medium-high density buildings, and that's in Half Moon Bay, where there are jobs, where there is an infrastructure, where there is appropriate transportation, none of which exists in Moss Beach. And if you think you can come in and introduce that to that community, it is totally destructive. And as I said to Felix, I urge you, please, now, step away. Do not exercise your option to buy this property. And one thing I want to make very clear, you see up there the date of the meeting in Montero that was on that screen, and they want our input. Let's be very clear. We're not going to create a mood of concession. We concede nothing. And to ask for our input is ridiculous. They do not own this property, and to ask us to design something we do not want is ridiculous. We cannot participate in a meeting like that. We concede nothing. And what is being passed around here earlier, and for people who have not signed it, I ask you to do so. We are going to organize, we are going to mobilize, and we have experience at this going back to Devil's Slide and the tunnel, and we will fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Before I welcome the next speaker up, just want to say that this is part of the dialogue. We are an elected advisory council to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, representing the 5 unincorporated communities of the Midcoast, including Montero and Moss Beach. For many issues, the Midcoast Community Council has agenda items like this. We listen and we write letters of support or non-support. And that is one of the ways that the dialogue gets to, the message gets to the Board of Supervisors. By coming here to this public meeting and seeking your comments publicly, having them recorded and captured in the minutes, this is part of the dialogue with the Board of Supervisors. This is how your voice gets heard by the Board of Supervisors. It's hard to get a one-on-one with a county supervisor. That's one of the reasons why the MCC was created. So we are, and I hear you, Richard, and those are, those are valid comments. That's why we're having this meeting here today. MidPenn can hear these comments, and they can do with them what they will. But it's giving them a chance to hear these comments and hear what the passion in your voice. So this is why we're here, and I appreciate that, and let's keep doing it. Karen Demore. Demore? Yeah, Demore. Karen.
Well, this is going to be tough to follow. Yes. My name's Karen Demore. I live in Moss Beach. And I'm up here. I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm here because everyone needs to speak. Just, even if we're saying the same thing, it's really important. There are numbers showing that we really care about Moss Beach. We have a wonderful community. I love the work that you do. I wholeheartedly support it. This is completely the inappropriate place for it. It makes no sense. In fact, any kind of major development on that plot of land makes no sense. Just the location to Highway 1, the traffic it will create, that's a blind curve. I mean, even trying to cross it if you want to walk over to visit the hostel and the lighthouse at sunset, good luck. It's really scary. In fact, I picked up a hawk once because it got hit crossing the road there, and I moved it to the side of the road. The point I'm just trying to make is these are just totally incompatible, incompatible community with incompatible project. And I just encourage everybody who has any opinion on this to let it know, because they need to know that over the hill. Developers need to know it. They need to know that we really care about our community in Moss Beach and protecting some of the last open spaces. So, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. John Kwanda? Kakunta. John. My apologies.
All right. So I'm here to repeat what everybody else is saying, in a sense. I want to start by saying, though, that I'm a big advocate for low-income housing. I have supported such things going back decades in San Francisco. I have volunteered to support communities that have already, where housing has already existed. And I really respect, I have a deep respect for what you guys do. However, with that said, I agree with everyone that this is absolutely the wrong place to do it. It's a large county. There's two main reasons that I believe that it's the wrong place. One is high-density housing is just inconsistent with the surroundings and with the community that's already there. If you look at the whole area of Moss Beach, there's no high-density housing anywhere within the Midcoast. It's like what Mr. Verlander said earlier. I've seen your properties, by the way. I've been over to Moon Ridge. I've been to the place there that's near Seacrest off of Main Street. I think the quality of your buildings, they're great, but really shoehorned in to an area where it just doesn't belong. I mean, it should have been in another area altogether. So, and not only that, we're talking about putting it in such an environmentally sensitive area. There's a lot of wildlife there. There's a riparian corridor of Montera Creek that runs right there between 16th and 14th along 15th Street. And this property will butt up right against that. You want to stick 148 units into, or squeeze it, I want to say, into 11 acres. That will completely change the character of the property that's there right now, actually the entire community. The other big reason I can't see it going there is because we just don't have the infrastructure to support it. Where are the roads? It's a two-lane highway. Highway 1 is a two-lane highway. You guys don't live over here, but I invite you to come down sometime and try to drive to 92 anytime between 7 in the morning and 9:30 in the morning, and then back anytime in the afternoon or evening. You want to add another 200 cars to the road, it is going to be a disaster. We just do not have the infrastructure in place to support it. I invite you guys. I know, and I worry a little, because if Mid-Penn backs away from this property, there'll be another developer who's going to come forth and want to develop it. So I think we're going to have to keep this fight going until something good comes of this property. Please do your project just somewhere else. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Marcia Yates.
Chris?
Yes, yeah.
I wondered if I could just, I feel like I need to set the record straight on something with respect to the 148 units.
I would recommend that you hold off on that.
But it seems like there's a misperception.
Okay.
And I don't want it to get reinforced.
Okay,
Would you mind?
Marcia, could you wait just one second, Marcia?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
Jan.
you. I just wanted to be clear that I think the number of units that's being referred to is what was the originally approved project years ago by the original owner, who then sold it to the CSEA, who's the current owner. We are not proposing 148 units. We are not proposing to develop the plan that was approved. So I just want to be clear about that.
Wait, if you're going to say this, then let us respond.
I just wanted to be,
Richard,
Richard,
please.
Talk about any number of more, let's use 60, let's use 60. That's too many.
I heard what you said. I wasn't trying to contradict you. I just was trying to say that we are not proposing 148 units. So that's just what I wanted to say.
This is how this is not going to be a productive meeting. Okay, please. There is no design. There is no proposal. The 148 units is from a previously.
I'm not, I realize that. I'm talking about the 60 that I heard from Felix, and I'm talking about the 60 that I've heard before. It is in the LCD. It took LCP, thank you, to be done in phases. Okay, and there's 60. And any fraction of 148 is too much. And if she wants to
Okay.
suggest 60, then there should be a rebuttal to it.
I'm not suggesting
No,
60.
we heard what you said, which is nothing. Okay, you're on record as saying nothing. There's no rebuttal needed. She was clarifying the 148 unit comment, okay? Now, I am not going to
That's fine.
have any more back and forth because otherwise we're gonna be here till midnight. Richard, you had your chance to say your piece. It was well said and well taken. And now we're gonna move on to the next person. Marcia, you're up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia.
I'm Marcia Yates. I live in Moss Beach, and we live in this area because we want it to be low density. And I understand that this property is, everybody's looking at it and wants to do something with it, and we want to say no to high density. But another thing that we also have to think about is what are we willing to say yes to? You know, you can say no, 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 but eventually you're going to have to say yes to something. And another interesting thing, I think, is how this is going, how something like this would segue into Connect the Coast. And we have to also remember Big Wave got approved, so, and Big Wave has 500 parking spaces. And so we're talking about adding another 200 cars perhaps, or whatever, just over 100 cars most likely. So we also have to think about the traffic and how Connect the Coast wants to make everything bigger and wider and faster. And yeah, we just have to, you know, put our brakes on and really be mindful about what we're going to be there. And I do think high-density housing is inappropriate for the well, you want to say ambiance, but just for the neighborhood. It changes everything. It makes us Manhattan Beach. It makes us Venice, you know? We don't want that. That's why we're here. So anyway, you guys keep the fight on.
Thank you, Marcia. Sandra Baraccio. Barrocio.
I want to start off by saying thank you, Jen, for that program. I'm a great believer of nonprofits, and
Okay, we won't be able to hear her comments with, I'm sorry to have to be so strict, but because of the video, we will not be able to hear Sandra's comments if there's murmuring and
sorry,
whatnot.
Mr. Gates. Jen, I want to say I have great respect for nonprofits. I was a nonprofit director for San Mateo County for 11 years, and now I live in Moss Beach, free of choice, because we wanted the isolation, we wanted what we have here, the ocean, the breathing. At the time, not too many cars. As a past nonprofit director, I always looked at the space where I was going to place residents. And this area is very isolated for residents. There is no retail, there is no shopping. As someone else says, there are no jobs. Further, the people that live, or the residents that are going to be there, like you said, are going to follow curriculum of education. We don't have colleges in Moss Beach, and if we did, buses would have to take the residents to the nearest colleges, which would be Skyline or San Mateo County, or San Mateo. So here, we're not only talking about cars, but we're talking about buses to transport the residents. Further, like Jan said, we should be able to make use of all the services that the programs provide. Again, you would need to have transportation for us, for a person to go in and use the services. That further impacts traffic. So in any case, if you have a nonprofit at that area, you're going to have to expand the services to make it community attractive or sexy. That means more traffic, more buses, because that's the only way you can get residents in and out, and outsiders like myself or Half Moon Bay residents in and out. The other point was, we have a fire station on Stetson. And right now, we're already impacted with a few vehicles that shouldn't be there, and it restricts the fire engine. They're very good drivers. I'm very proud of those firemen. They never hit anything. I've always tell them, how do you manage to squeeze between those boats? And they say, well, you know, we do our best to not to hit any boats on the way out. Well, there probably will be more traffic parked. And as hard as we want to say, as a nonprofit person, as hard as we want to say there will be 1 car per house, 2 cars per houses, maybe none, there's always 3 or 4 because everyone needs transportation. And in Moss Beach, we don't have the luxury of great Transams or great buses or, you know, scheduling like that. You have to skip. My son went to study in Oakland, and he had to take 3 buses and a train and BART to get to Moss Beach back and forth for 4 years, and he did it. But that takes a lot of energy. And someone that's in a special program that wants to escalate, that wants to attend college, it's going to mean that, and that'll impact our community. We love nonprofits. We do our best to help out, and we want to be there, but unfortunately, this little neighborhood, Moss Beach, it's not the right place for a nonprofit. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. So if there's anybody else that, we've got some more speaker slips, but if there's anybody else that would like to make a comment, and I encourage everybody that's here tonight, please, if you have something that you think you want to say, even if it's already been said, please, this is your chance to have your public moment. So if you could bring those, your public comment slips up and hand them to Dan, and I will call them in the order they get to me. Carol Keller.
I also live in Moss Beach. I live just right above that small little area where I think we have our 5 businesses in Moss Beach. But I moved here from San Francisco, so I'm well aware of high-density housing. And I work in downtown San Francisco, so I'm familiar with the high-density communities. I don't really think this fits the profile of what a high-density housing community should be. It should be a place where there's groceries, where there's public transportation, where there's all the things that you need within a community that you can bike or you can walk to. And I think that's the plan that San Mateo County should be shooting for. I think we should get away from building communities in remote areas where everybody has to drive 5 times during the day to get their groceries, to drop the kids off to school, to do this, to do that. It's not just 1 extra car on the road, it's five trips for each person. There is no place around here in Moss Beach where you can do hardly anything except for the little liquor store down the street. And it's just not appropriate for high-density housing. I like the idea of high-density housing in Half Moon Bay. I don't think it should be as big as it is. I did look on my cell phone. It looks more like a college campus, the one that's 160 housing units. Absolutely inappropriate, I think, for anywhere in this area. I think 60 should be the max. But regardless, when we're talking about if it was an extra 100, 200 cars on the road, I don't even go to Half Moon Bay on the weekend anymore. It's stopped, and I don't mean slow, I mean stopped. For Horsley's office, while I got the podium, I wish you guys would actually put some decent public transportation in this area. I'm for more buses. I would just like to not have to take 3 different buses to get to my job. And I think you'd have 500% more people taking public transportation if you didn't make it ridiculously impossible for us to get there. I'm not going to spend 2 hours each way getting to work. But it's totally inappropriate for high-density housing. It's infrequent, although I did read that they just increased the frequency, which I'm still not going to take because it's still going to take me 2 hours to get to work each way. But and to echo the whole things of a dangerous corner, there is no place to park on these streets. If the occupancy, if the number of people staying, or for that matter visiting, because we haven't calculated in visitors, if the number of that people exceeded the parking space, there is no place to park that's appropriate in our neighborhood. You can't park on Highway 1, and the streets right there along that narrow road are inappropriate. It's too narrow to park on. And lastly, if they weren't parking there, they'd be parking in front of our house. And typically, most houses have 1 space in front of it. So, but I just think it's a really archaic plan to create these types of projects out in remote areas. I think we need to look forward and do it in the places that we're supposed to be, where you can have everything that you need and bike and walk to home.
Thank you, Carol. John Patino?
I live on Sierra Street. I'm not 75 feet from where this proposed housing is going to be. We don't have a plan. We don't have much more than an idea. I don't know why we're here. All I could say is 38 years ago I fought against this. That's when my daughter was playing out in the street and walking our dogs with the neighbors across the street, and now their kids and my grandchildren are playing on that street and walking their dogs and riding up and down that street. Right up against the area on Sierra Street that this property borders, the very area where the previous owners and the current owners do not maintain the property. Higher density housing in Moss Beach, particularly on that side of the hill, or on any side of the hill in Moss Beach, is ridiculous. There's nothing there like that. This is a one single-family house, detached area. You want to put single-family houses there? I'm sure we're all for it. You want to do even better? It should be a park. I believe that the gentleman that sat over here with this nice young lady is right here.
Richard.
I think is Richard.
Yeah.
I see him, I don't really know him, but I see him every day. He's on his deck. We say hi, his dogs bark at my dogs bark at his dogs. This is a neighborhood that is pure, just people that want to be single-family houses. I'm not prepared for, and one of the things I wanted to say was, I heard that this meeting was going on from my daughter, who said, did you pick up the Half Moon Bay Review? And I said, I didn't get it in the mail yet. And it said they were having this meeting tonight, so I rushed down. Anyway, I am against it. Back in the day, there was no water pressure. I don't know where they're getting the water from, but there was no water pressure back in the day, and I don't remember voting for putting in any more extra water pressure into the Moss Beach area. Anyway, like Richard, I will fight this tooth and nail. I got nothing else to do. Now I'm retired.
Thank you, John, and that's why we're having the meeting tonight, so we can hear comments like that. Thank you. Sean Handel.
Hello, everyone. Sean Handel. I live in Moss Beach also, and first, thank you for coming here tonight. Appreciate you listening to the community and hearing everything that we have to say. I know it's not easy when everything sounds negative, but I also feel the same way as everyone else who's speaking here, and basically think that the idea of putting this type of housing on this spot is just wrong for Moss Beach for all those same reasons. It doesn't fit the community. I don't think it's something that people who live in the area want, for sure. But if you look at that as sort of a NIMBYism kind of thing, if you ask people who live in San Mateo or Burlingame or whoever why they come over to the coast, it's not to look at that type of housing. They come over here to see the coast and the coastline. They don't want that here either. So let's all vote on it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there are very practical issues around traffic and jobs and all that stuff that we have to deal with. And I just don't see there being any possible plan where those make sense. So I think, Don Horst, who's representative, I think we should all be pushing for this to be a park. That's what it's been for a long time. We should probably fight to get an easement, honestly. It's been used that way for decades. And, I remember when we were dealing with the Moss Beach Park issue, there was, a lot of discussion around the fact that on the coast side, there just aren't enough parks for kids. There's not enough place to play, and this would be a great spot for that. So I wish the county would step in step up and make that happen here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Ann Rothman.
Hi, I live in Moss Beach, just down the street from where this is proposed, and I, like everyone else, am opposed for many reasons. First, like everyone else, the traffic would be heavily impacted, but more importantly, the community. I moved here 23 years ago, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. And I've lived all over. You can hear my voice. I'm from the East Coast. I've lived in the Midwest, and I'm telling you, I'm here, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. And because of this community and the people in the community, I feel that this would change it in a way that is not appropriate. And those that you were trying to serve with this kind of housing cannot be served. We do not have the infrastructure. We don't have any services, and you can't possibly provide all the services that they're going to need yourself. It would be absurd to try. I mean, you don't have transportation. You don't have education. I mean, you don't have shopping, like everyone said. You don't have jobs. What are you offering people other than a place to live? But at what cost? When if you found a different location, you may be able to provide them all the things they need, such as the jobs, the transportation, all the education, things that they would need in a more appropriate setting. I travel every day over the hill with my daughter. She goes to school over the hill. And it takes me close to 1 hour to get to Hillsborough from here. That's what it takes me now. I can't imagine what it would take me if I have to do this with this development. I don't know. I would have to move. I would not be able to stay. So that's my 2 pieces.
Thank you, Ann. Dolores Silva.
Hello, and well, I think, Richard is my husband, and we live right there. And we've been a little puzzled at how this process has come along, in that very few people seem to even know that this is happening. I mean, I think I've probably told more people that are here than, because of where we live, people came and actually told us this was happening even before, I guess, anybody else knew. And it's sad. It's really sad. It's making us all kind of angry, or not even so much that it's anger. It's like we're losing sleep. I mean, this is really kind of wrecking up our sense of being. You might think that it's a worthwhile cause. I agree. I think that Mid-Penn is a good provider of these kinds of, answers to a really serious problem. But I don't think this is the place. I think for all the reasons that everyone else spoke of. But even then, because of where we live, we've talked to people who have been trying to buy the property. There was a developer from down south who, when we called him and said, it appears that now Mid-Penn is going to buy this property, and we just wanted to know what happened with your offer. And he said, we never heard back. We made an offer. We tried to contact them several times. This is CSCA. And they never even responded. I think Catherine Slater also said that they had at one time tried to buy it, and they never got a response. I mean, I don't understand how this is coming about, except that it seems to me that the county has brought in Mid-Penn in maybe I'm not saying that they just went and got them, but that's the way it seems to me. And it seems like the county doesn't understand who we are. So, this just does not feel good. I think all my neighbors feel the same way. And I really hope that that you can find affordable housing where there is already services to help these people, where they have clinics, where they have dental services, where they have grocery stores, where they can buy affordable food. I mean, all that stuff is true. And just even if you think about the many cars that there will be, think about the construction process. What is it going to be like in that little corner of Moss Beach? on the highway, who's gonna even get to work? And what if you have an emergency that you have to get to the hospital or there's a fire? What are you gonna do? It's a terrible place to even think about putting this kind of density. And as my husband said, whether it's 60, certainly not 150, that would be terrible, but 60 or, I don't know, even 25 would be a lot. I really wish that this was a spot that you would move away from. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Yes, sure. Come up to the microphone so we can record it, please.
The fact that this has zoning to allow this medium density, as they call it, because probably it can only be 2 stories high, it doesn't mean that it has to be developed this way. Whoever buys it can develop it according to what will be accepted through the county or through the coastal commission or whatever. But there is no requirement that this land be developed as affordable housing at all.
Can I add?
Yes, Lisa?
We have an affordable housing page on the MCC website, and I put the LCP policies on there that, that would potentially relate to this, and there is actually this is an LCP designated affordable housing site, and there's a percentage of whatever is built there that has to be low and affordable and it's on the page if you want to.
Change it, take it apart, change it.
She's just telling you where it is right now.
I'm sorry.
Okay, let's just continue on. Let's just continue on. Laura, hello. Oh. Here, why don't you take my chair?
Chris, I can.
No, that's okay. Bill Kehoe. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Midcoast, for coming here. First of all, I agree with a lot of what's already been said. I'm a resident of Moss Beach for over 30-some-odd years here. I don't want you to answer me now, but because I don't want to cut into my time, but it was news to me that you do not sell the property, you maintain it yourself, and I'd like to know how that process works, and I'd also like to know with other properties, what do you do when it begins to get long in the tooth? Do you sell them off, and will those restrictions that you build it with go with the deed and so on? That's all important to us here. I think what people really talked about here that's really important is the sense of community. We're all single, one-family houses on 5,000 plus square feet lots. And so the minute you begin jiggling those things, you begin to get a crumble around the community edges, which does not work well. As one gentleman said, this was tried before under the name, and I think it's on Lisa's page too. That was actually, you should go out and look at Lisa's page. There's a lot of good information out there. Fairlawn Vista, and you know, I'm going to jump back to what Marcia said, because at some point, like in all negotiations, you have to get to yes. And so some people say, well, a few houses maybe, and some people say not high density, not affordable, but it's not defined. And that's the real hard part about speaking right now, is none of us know what's coming. And that alone is very disconcerting, because you don't even know the questions to ask when you don't know what's going on here. So, and I do get a feeling that there's a lot going on behind closed door over in Redwood City. And hey, that's the whole history of the MCC. When the county has given us the bum's rush, we had to go and form the MCC to make them come over here and be accountable to us. So this is kind of being accountable without passing on any real information for us to go and look at and make an educated decision about. So honestly, I'm not running for office, don't clap. I'll never do that again. I think that's why I hear a lot of, I don't want to say anger, but more fear in people's, you know, a lot of this, we bought here 30 years ago. This is kind of our investment, you know, and, you know, we either want to pass it on to our kids or maybe someday sell it and go someplace more affordable or whatever the dream might be, but, you know, all of a sudden you're going to come in here and that's all going to change. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, and I don't know what it is, if it's affordable housing, is it high-density housing, is it for the elderly, is it for young people? I mean, none of that's been defined, so, hey, who knows what it's gonna be? So, one other thing I think everybody should understand, and this is what Marcia was talking about, coming to yes is a good idea. Maybe what they're proposing might be better than if they have to decide to run and we get somebody else in who really wants to make a huge profit and develop with a much higher density. That's a bigger worry for me. And the second thing we should all think about is this is only one of 3 areas designated by the LCP for this kind of type of housing. The other one is down by the hospital in Morris Beach. So Morris Beach, we can be sandwiched in the middle in Morris Beach. And then the third one is just down here at the north end of El Granada. And I guess the fourth one disappeared with Big Wave. Was that used to be the fourth one? That was the original?
That was in Miramar, that was withdrawn long ago.
No, there's one over by the airport somewhere on the map.
Pillar Ridge?
It could be. I was gonna ask you, but you showed up late. I was gonna ask you before the meeting. I'll ask you later.
I was watching the Coastal Commission, I'm sorry.
I understand. I'm not kind of late. Anyway, so that's all I have to say is that, I think to what the gentleman said right up is that, as a community, we all need to speak up and say, if you're gonna come back with a proposal, it's gotta be something that's really not gonna change the community that we've fought and built and, worked on. Some of us are, not me, but a lot of people, some are second generation, been here their whole lives, and so, yeah, that's.
Thank you, Bill. So I just want to make a couple of comments, piggybacking on what people have said. One, and I said this many times, the best source of information, including all of the source documents on anything going on the 5 Midcoast communities, is the MCC website. And I don't say that to toot our own horn. There's no advertising. There, it is the receptacle of all. This person right here, Lisa, has gone back in the archives for 10 or 15 years, has pulled out the source documents, has organized them in an accessible way on the website. It has more information than the county website, the Half Moon Bay Review. There is no other place. If you're going to go and look for information for what's happening on the coast, please go to the MCC website first. If you can't find it, contact me. I will help you find that information. The MCC website is the place to go. If you're going someplace else, you're not getting all of the information. You're not getting the source documents. You're not getting the timely issues in addition to the agenda and the minutes of past meetings. Please, I beg of you, go to that website for anything that you're looking for. It's there. Yes.
I just wonder if the sellers have put any stipulations on what they want to be dealing with.
I don't have any information on that. I do not know, sir. Sorry to say I do not know. And the other thing I wanted to say is, following up on what Dolores said, one of the reasons and some people said, why are we even having this meeting tonight? A couple reasons. One, to get the word out. Dolores said people don't even know what's going on. Guess what? That's why we're having this meeting. That's why we put up announcements in the Half Moon Bay Review, on Nextdoor, around the post offices on the Mid-Coast. I wanted twice the amount of people here, 5 times. I want everybody to know. That's one of the reasons we're having this meeting tonight, so that the community will, people that don't know will know. People that attend this meeting will go out and spread that information that Mid-Penn is thinking about buying this property, that this property is up for sale. Anybody that doesn't know, please spread the word. And the other thing is, why are we having this meeting when we don't know any details? It's so that the community can express their feelings on the public record with representatives of Mid-Penn here before they've made a purchase, so they can hear how the community feels before they take that step to purchase. That's why we're having the meeting tonight. I know it may feel hollow to some people that there's no details. They want to talk about specific designs. There are no specific designs. That's one of the reasons we're having this early outreach meeting, so that you can have your input before a decision is even made to purchase the property. So
How long have they been waiting to purchase this? How long has this deal been in the works?
I think I've heard about it maybe a month ago. Yeah, but we don't know details, and that's not the purpose of this meeting tonight, is to figure out what the details are of the negotiations. I don't know. It's a black box to me too. Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate the interlude. Bruce McKimmey.
Hi, Bruce McKinney from Moss Beach. I was gonna make a joke about, I'd love to see 200, 300, 400 cars driving past my house every day and on the highway, but it's not funny. When I first moved to Moss Beach, the streets were dirt, and we had no sidewalks, and it was a big deal when we got asphalt and sidewalks. In the county, with all their wisdom, you have to walk down the street, you have to cross over, you walk down the street, you cross over again. And so we're a sleepy little town, Moss Beach. And high density, medium density has no place in our beautiful little community. So I back what everybody else is saying tonight, and hope the county's listening, and hope Mid-Penn is listening as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Luis Betancourt?
So I live in Moss Beach, and well, my girlfriend and I, we must have looked at like over 100 houses before we actually settled on this neighborhood. And the thing that really attracted us about this neighborhood is it's a quaint little neighborhood. It's home. We saw it. It's like, this is home. With a monstrosity of what I'm hearing that potentially could be built, it's going to totally ruin the reason that we're living here. Completely ruin it. And to think about, we're not knocking over Kmart here. We're going to displace. Let me rephrase that. We're going to kill lots of wildlife developing this piece of land, and it's going to ruin our community. It's going to make it completely what it's not right now. And what everybody's been saying, the infrastructure, the traffic, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, and I don't want this to happen.
Thank you, Luis. Lulu Wilt.
Hi, I'm the girlfriend, Moss Beach. So yeah, we looked at so many houses. We love, this was it. This is the place that I can be out gardening and I know everybody on the street. You know, everybody says hello. Everybody knows everybody. It's just such a small town feeling. We always talk about what a great small town feeling this has. We feel already a sense of loss that even that space will be gone with whatever's going to be put in there. We all like to walk, so many people like to walk their dogs around here, and we love how it's just this dog town where it's just dog friendly, and we have dogs that don't like other dogs, so we walk down the street and we go, oh, there's a dog, we gotta go the other way. We gotta go the other way. And I can't imagine more people being on the street with more dogs. That's just kind of a silly reason. But that's just like, my mind's going, oh my gosh, and now there's gonna be more cars. We're gonna have, you know, we live on Kelmore, so I'm sure coming down, they're gonna make turns to get over to California Street. I mean, you know, and then there's, the other concern is the reserve and all the area around there that is so delicate. And we already have visitors coming from everywhere to go down to the tides and the tide pools and enjoy that. But if people are living there and then bringing their friends and, you know, visitors, because we have visitors and we go, let's go down to the reserve. You know, that's the first thing that we show people. And I can't imagine a lot more people living up there and just being all over the land that we have around here, the resources that we try to, you know, we all care about so much, and we don't want to see it change. And man, the whole idea of putting that as open space or a park would be amazing, because that's all I hear about is that there's not enough of that for kids around. And then also one last thing is air quality, that will change as well from having more cars in the area, you know, driving around. And the last thing was mentioned before about the traffic. We have to plan to get our groceries on the way home from work. Otherwise, if you go on the weekend, you will sit like for a half hour just to get to Half Moon Bay because so many people are already on the road. People come from everywhere to our beautiful area, and I don't blame them. We used to do that too. But it's when you live in this community and it's your own community that's growing and making more traffic, that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense for this area.
Thank you, Lulu. Amy Paulson.
Hi, my name is Amy Paulson. I live in Moss Beach with my husband and 3 kids. Thank you for the introduction to Mid-Penn. The one thing that I found missing was why we're going on this journey to do the due diligence in Moss Beach. Why even start this process in Moss Beach? I personally can't see any advantage to developing affordable housing other than the fact that there's simply a piece of land available. And just because there's a vacant piece of land doesn't mean it needs to be developed. To echo other comments, there's just not the infrastructure to support a development like this in terms of roads, jobs, services like stores, the schools. I personally don't want to see the infrastructure be put into place. That's why we live here. We're saying there's no infrastructure, and I think most people in this room don't want to see that infrastructure be created over time. And just lastly, we just invite you, if you don't already live in our community, come down on the weekend, President's Day weekend. You'll have a great time commuting anywhere, going any place. And you know, if you're developing affordable housing, a lot of the people, I don't want to generalize, but I assume that some of those people are going to have service jobs and hospitality jobs that aren't Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They're going to be commuting on weekends. And what service are you doing if you're really concerned about the service of the people living, the quality of life of the people living there, to have them commuting over an hour to most parts of the county, most days of the week and times of the day? So those are my comments.
Thank you. We have a speaker slip from a member of the council who's also a member of the community in discussion. So we're going to hold that. This is the last speaker slip I have. I just want to put out there again, I'm so happy that everybody has come, and if you've come and not made a comment, this is your chance. And I encourage you to make a comment. Have your voice heard. Say what you want to say about this. This is a time to do it. Mark?
I'm just curious, can we add to a comment? There's a couple things I forgot to say.
I would like to see if there's anybody else who would like to make an initial comment, somebody who hasn't made a comment yet. And I would like to limit how many I understand, Mark. I think we can make some allowances there, but I don't want it to turn into like, oh yeah, and I've got another thing to say, and I've got another thing to say. Otherwise, I'll just have to start at the top of the pile again. So, great. Can you go up to the podium?
I didn't have a slip, so I didn't come.
That's okay. Go up to the podium, and we will.
Make it short.
We will capture. Give us your name and your community, please.
My name is Doug Laughlin. I live on Sierra Street, a couple blocks away from the proposed development area. And I don't want to waste people's time. I agree with just about everything. I agree with everything that's been said here tonight. And I just wanted to echo the last speaker and say that I think it would be a real disservice to your clientele to isolate them in this strange, non-conforming living situation. They would be an island, and they're already going to be an island because of it takes, they've got to go to, drive to work, navigate the highways. They're going to be in for a real surprise, and I don't think it's a good mixture. And your slides that you had up there, it might be a pretty picture of the groundbreaking and the ribbon cutting and maybe a couple of smiling kid faces, but that's initially. I think down the road they're going to realize this is a tough place for my lifestyle to live and be. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
I'm Alec Duncan. I live in Moss Beach, not far from the project. Last time this happened, it was the son of Jack Foster who got the $10,000 option on the property, and he was prepared to build pretty much identically the same thing, which I'm hearing about. Well, anyway. It was produced as a drawing that clearly was a drawing that could have been anywhere in the world. It was pretty much 2-story townhouses that were all lined up, and there was absolutely no allowance for any parks, any recreation, anything except park your car, here's your house, come in, go out. That was it. We fought it. luckily we were successful in fighting it. The people that were in favor of it included Jackie Spear and Anna Eshu, both of whom I admire very much and who are usually pretty much reasonable people. And they said, you're just NIMBYs, we gotta put it somewhere, you're just worried about it being over in your area. And you could see in their mind they're saying, over there somewhere. And my fear is that this is what's happening again. It's gonna be, you people, you've got your nice little houses over there, you just want it to stay that way, you need to take the hit. We are already full over here. We don't have any room for more of this stuff. We want you to take it. And it's like, okay, we've got to put it somewhere. It's going to go to Moss Beach because there's a nice piece of, I would say, relatively inexpensive property. And that is the genesis. One other person said, well, there's property, we've got to develop it. Why not put it there? It's because it's inexpensive. You could probably put the same nice project someplace that is closer to services and so on. And it's more expensive because people want to live there. People are not killing themselves to live in, well, anyway, it's just, my fear is that it's kind of a deal. And the deal is, yeah, over there somewhere, just do it, duck down while the pain happens, and then once we're done, everything will be fine. And not to criticize the individual project, but the concept that the people who are in charge of saying yes or no, which is the supervisors, I don't think that they're as invested in this little piece of the coast side or down by the hospital as the people who live here are. The last time it was defeated because of the water issue. For better or for worse, our water company has solved that problem. Now there's enough water to put out 2 burning houses at the same time. And so now it's okay. That was the big hurdle. That was the reason they couldn't do it last time, is because there was insufficient water to put out 2 fires at the same time. So I'm a bright-eyed, happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but sometimes I see things in a slightly cynical view, and that is that the people who are in charge are saying, yeah, over there, yeah, do it over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Right here, yes.
Hi, my name is Buffy Bunting. I live in Moss Beach, and I've lived here since 1986. My husband just spoke, and aside from him, I concur with everything that everybody has said here. I am adamantly opposed to this, not because I don't believe in affordable housing and certainly supporting seniors and people with special needs. That piece of property over in Moss Beach is not the place that this is going to happen. I spent 5 years working in the Tenderloin in Section 8 housing with seniors who needed services of all sorts. They could actually walk, back in those days, they could walk to a drugstore and get their medication. They could walk to the community center and have activities where there was all kinds of people there, not just the people within their housing, within their hotel. It was a very different approach. It wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, it was the Tenderloin after all, but what we're talking about here is isolation. What are you going to do with the people who have special needs? Where can they go? If they have special needs because they're schizophrenic, are you going to let them walk out in the street by themselves? They're going to need transportation, they're going to need people taking care of them, they're going to need people looking after them. Is our hospital prepared to handle some of these things that might happen, some of these people that might be walking around and get hit by a car? That street where we have right by Dolores and Richard Street that we all walk on, that is that blind spot, it's several accidents waiting to happen. And oh, by the way, the fire department, God bless them, when we look at some of our streets already crowded with cars, I tell people, don't park, if you've got a driveway, park in your driveway, because guess what, if there's a fire down the street, the firemen aren't going to come and knock on your door and say, would you mind moving your car? They're going to plow right through your car to get to the fire. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Way too much for this very small community. We really should fight to turn this into open space, because that is really what it has been for the last 30 years that we've lived here and before that. So let's take a look at that. And frankly, from my point of view, I work for the Department of Public Health in San Francisco. See a lot of things happen. I am quite certain that the supervisor, with all due respect, has some appreciation for what Mid-Penn would like to do. It's a little hard for me to stand here and think, well, no one knows. Somebody knows. Somebody has seen some kind of plan, some kind of design, some kind of draft. And the fact that we don't know about it and that we're here having to listen is really not okay.
Thank you, Buffy.
Hi, I'm Chris Pritchard. I live on Sierra Street. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I'm going to speak not on behalf of adults, but more on behalf of children and animals. And that sounds goofy, but everyone else has been represented. But I walk there every day in the open space with my dogs. I let them off leash there. And it is one of the only places nearby that I can get green in my life every day. And I have seen great horned owls. I've seen remnants of cougars. I've seen deer. I've seen pretty much every animal I would want to see down there. I see a homeless guy right now in a tent who's making a mess out of the place, and I'm a little afraid of him, to be quite honest. I don't go there anymore. So that's something to take a look at. He's a little creepy. And there are water holes made by all the rains that the animals, I believe, drink. And I just want to say that it's a green place. I think we have to think about environment. And I'm glad that someone mentioned the the air quality. That'll change. All those animals will go away. And children. My kids both made forts down there, played there, got in trouble down there. Teenagers recently were hauled out of there with their skate park, which I was in support of because it was a place for teenagers to hang out in. And I think that's what got this rolling, to be quite honest, is evacuating that skate park. It was a place where people could be isolated and have fun, and maybe some people considered that dangerous, I don't know, but teenagers like to go out by themselves. It was a place for that. My kids played down there all the time and rode bikes down there because it was unpaved for a long time where we live. And my little section still is, and I will keep it that way if I have anything to say about it. And I just think that environmentally, the impact is really high. It's going to be very high. It's the only little piece of heaven we have that's green and full of life, if you look around. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, sir, sitting down, and then, sir, you in the blue shirt will be next. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Schaefer. I live in Moss Beach as well. I actually live up on Lincoln Street, right above where the project would be. So it would most likely be coming right up in front of my property. My wife and I and our son moved out here about 1.5 years ago. We lived in San Francisco and Daly City for a long time and decided that we wanted to come someplace beautiful, and this is what we found. You know, I mean, those are the reasons why we're here, and I basically wanted to say that I agree absolutely with everything that's being said. And one other thing I just wanted to point out was, you know, the discussion of the lack of infrastructure and not wanting it to be put in because it would ruin what we have here. I think another part of that issue is that I don't think that some of the infrastructure can be put in. If you take a look at Highway 1, there's a lot of places where I can't imagine how you would even widen that if you wanted to. I mean, they just built the tunnel, but, you know, those are one lane either way, or kind of 1.5 lane either way. Are they gonna go in and widen those tunnels after they just got done building them? There's narrow cuts through the hillsides, and there's drop-offs where there's no place to even build a road, even if we decided we wanted to do that. So I think there's just bottlenecks everywhere that I personally can't imagine how that would be overcome to put the kind of infrastructure in place that it would need to take on this kind of additional population down here. So, you know, and again, along with what a lot of other people said, I'm absolutely supportive of the desire to build affordable housing. It's insanely expensive around here, but again, I think it's just not a good match for this area for so many reasons. And so basically just wanted to say that much.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, hi, it's good to see all my neighbors. My name's Scott. And I totally believe with everything everyone said. I don't want to reiterate what they said. But first of all, And I respect someone trying to purchase a property, but I too think, I think there's alternative, some cahoots with the Board of Supervisors that we're not aware of. And I think we should, if we could make some kind of law or present some kind of petition that we all could vote on, that to change the zoning, to make it impossible for anyone to put anything on this property. No alternative, period. I mean, I know he said there might be better alternatives. I don't think there's any alternative. There's zero alternatives. This is a special place. I've been here since 1985. This place is like heaven, and we're gonna fight for it. We're gonna do everything. If we have to hire the most expensive attorney in the world, we will. I do respect your pursuit of the American dream, profit. However, not in our backyard. So there must be something structural that we can do, the Midcoast Peninsula can present, either by vote, something to get their attention, because they're not gonna listen to us. And we gotta fight them, and we gotta fight them like rabid dogs. And just put nothing in that property, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We're not gonna have questions, John, but if you wanna make another comment. 1 second, ma'am. I may allow a couple more people to make secondary comments. We'll just have to see how it's going. Yes.
Hi, I'm Audrey Patchett. I live in Moss Beach, and I'm definitely opposed to development in this area. The thing that I'm confused about and would really like people to revisit is this fact that it's zoned for low-income housing. I feel like we're getting tricked, and we got to get some low-income housing in, and oh my God, we don't have the infrastructure to support this. Why don't we on the coast demand that you put the infrastructure in first? The highways, the shopping, the education, the medical facilities, and then we can look at building out housing for people. But I don't like getting tricked like this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Audrey. Is there anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Barbara Mathewson, and I live on Carlos Street in Moss Beach, and I'm a neighbor of Richard and Dolores's. Being that I'm only about 3 doors down from where this was happening, I only found out about it at a Christmas party, just with some talk. Our street is a street that when there's Pumpkin Festival, Dream Machines, whatever, our skinny little one-lane street is used as a highway to bypass everyone. There's no way we can fit more traffic on holidays or whatever. The other thing is that you say if you're not gonna allow people to park in your property. Well, that's right. You go down Half Moon Bay right now and look at your spots, they're all on the street. They're parked in front of our houses and such. So I don't think that would definitely still be a problem, is parking. And also the last thing that nobody's really brought up, but it's property value. I believe our property value is gonna go down. I don't think we could list our properties for sale right now, not disclose it. And I think it's just a really bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there anybody else that has not yet made a comment that would like to make a comment? Please, I implore you, if you haven't made a comment, I want to hear what you have to say. Okay. I'm going to allow a couple of people to make additional comments. Please, let's not engage in questions with Mid-Penn. This is a chance for you to make your public comment. It's a one-directional opportunity for you to say what you want to say. You can raise those questions, but they will not be answered. We'll see how many people want to make a second comment. Again, if you really have something that hasn't been said yet, that you didn't already say, great. We want to hear that. But let's not be like, yeah, and what that person said, I agree with that too. I mean, I think with the video, with the minutes, with our notes, we're capturing what you have to say, and it's very important to us. So if there's additional comments, we will listen to those. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark. I live in the back of Montero on Date Street. I spoke before. But I just forgot to add in a couple of things. The senior development down there in Half Moon Bay is 264 units onto that little patch of land there where Seacrest School is. That's going up 3 stories. I just wanted you to know that these guys built that. And also the Moon Ridge development. Well, all of those 2 buses come up through the back streets of Montero every morning and every afternoon and take those kids from that school up to our school. But we don't have any busing for our kids down to Half Moon Bay High School. Half of this community drives down to Half Moon Bay twice a day, 3 or 4 times if we have sports practices or soccer practices. And speaking of infrastructure, I live on a gravel street in the back of Montero that we pay property taxes for all of the road repairs in the county, but our road is not county road because that's what the county has decided. And it's rutted. You can't drive our car down without going off the road to go around it. So there is a lot of infrastructure here that would have to be done that the county should, the person said before, should step up and put some infrastructure into our community that you're putting in over the hill in the city of San Mateo, when I go to there, and they're all brand new paved streets, and we have potholes filled with shovels and a tar patch. So I think it's, I think that's it. I think there's plenty of other places over the hill, certainly. The city of San Mateo could have such a project. There's that horse racing track area over there. And this is a beautiful point. That Point Montero, where that lighthouse is, it's like it's a potential Point Lobos of Monterey. This could be a valued addition to the national park area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. John?
Hi again, John Kakunda, and I'm not allowed to ask questions, so I'm going to
You can ask them, but they will be rhetorical.
I'll phrase it in a different way. I would like to know what the asking price of this 11-acre plot of land is. If MCC knows it and could disclose it, that would be great, or if anybody knew it.
It was listed for $4 million at one point. I have no idea what the current price is.
Great. The other semi-question, but statement I'm going to make is whether Mid-Penn is considering 148 units, or whether they're considering 100 units, or whether they're considering 60 or 10 or even 1. I'm sure that there is a number somewhere in between there below which the return on investment is no longer worth doing the construction or breaking ground. What I would like to know is what is that number, because I'm sure Mid-Penn has probably already sat down and calculated that, and they have a number in their minds, undisclosed as of yet, below which they will not move forward on the project. So if that can be disclosed, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Carol. Yes, thank you, Carol. Thank you.
I just had one comment and kind of a rhetorical question. The comment is, this is one of the few communities where Highway 1 actually goes through a town, and that does make a difference. And one of, I believe somebody was talking about an access road. That does mean that the access road is frequently used, whether or not it's Carlos or whether it's Stetson. If they're not turning right onto Highway 1, they will probably not be turning left onto Highway 1. They will probably be driving through our community, down these very incredibly narrow little streets. And I think sometimes when you don't own in the community, I think sometimes that you do have a little bit of less connection to the community. We are a neighborhood of dog walkers. If you were to walk down the street, my street, at any time, you will probably see 4 or 5 people out walking their dogs at all times. But what I wanted to know is, regardless of what was built there, how are we going to be keeping people from, how are we going to limit the traffic down these streets? Because these are streets where people are walking their dogs. These are streets where kids are playing out in the street. I have a basketball hoop right across the street from my house. The kids are out there. This is not the type of community, the width of the streets that allows a lot of 200, 300 cars passing through on a frequent basis. So I'd be interested to know what the plan was to prevent that.
Thank you, Carol.
As I was standing back there, I thought of something that no one has addressed either, is public safety. If we ever have to evacuate and, there was a threat of a tsunami, how are we going to get out? We don't have the roads. We don't have any infrastructure. How are you going to protect your citizens? How are we supposed to be protected? How can we possibly vacate the coast if ever necessary?
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else? Yes. Chris, yes.
Lisa, I saw you at one point down there looking around, and you seem to know the flora and fauna really well. What would it take, to find a red-legged frog? Or something that would stop this? I mean, I don't even know what the, procedure is for that. If I saw one, who do I call? I would encourage you all to look for them. You've seen them down there? In the big, really? So I don't know how to go about that, but that's how legal stuff happens, I know, environmentally. That's one aspect of it, so.
They need ponds.
Well, they have some now.
I mean,
And there are frogs there now, right now.
Ponds with longevity.
Yeah.
The red-legged frog is big with dorsal ridge.
I'll look it up for sure.
They have done a biology report. Don't think they found anything.
Oh, okay. Is that on your site?
That hasn't been released. This was in conversation with Felix. He said that they had done a biology report.
Because I would love to just get a hold of an information sheet for what does live down here that keeps this stuff from.
It's interesting to read it's okay?
Yes, yes,
It's
thank you.
interesting to read, posted on the affordable housing page is the staff report for the South Moss Beach project, Moss Beach Highlands, when it was appealed to the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission staff report is there, and it goes into, which recommended denial, and it goes into the detail, history. It mentions the North Moss Beach site, and and the issues why they denied the South Moss Beach site. One was a ridge line, where the housing was proposed on the ridge line, which is a no-no. There was wetlands there, which is a no-no. And it was adjoining Rancho. And they said in that staff report that in comparison, the North Moss Beach site would be more appropriate because it was surrounded by residential, didn't have the ridge line issues and these other things. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying I read it in the staff report. It's useful to know because this was the Coastal Commission analysis of it. So it's interesting stuff in there.
Too, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, when you ask about how you go about this thing, it's always educational to read a Coastal Commission staff report and how they come up with their recommendations.
Bill Kehoe.
Just a quick question. Lisa, when you were looking at that, was there any mention of soil testing? One of the rumors floating around when that used to be a Navy barracks was that they painted everything with asbestos, so it's in the ground, so there's probably soil contamination. I've only heard rumors. I haven't found any documents or anything on it. Have you seen anything or know of anything?
MidPenn's research has not been released. I just know
I see.
that they have done a biology. We haven't seen any of it.
Okay. But that, I mean, I know a lot of people have probably heard the same thing I have, but
Yes.
it'd be interesting to find that out.
Thank you, Bill.
So the question I'd like to.
Buffy, could you go up to the mic?
Yeah,
That way you'll be captured on the video.
All right, so just the question I'd like to have answered at some point is, has there been an actual environmental impact report? And so we want to reflect on that, we want to reflect on the south coast.
That doesn't happen until the project is completely defined.
Until the project is completely defined, but there has been some kind of report that no one has seen yet.
That's part of their due diligence.
Right, who did it? That's what I'd like to know, who did that then?
MidPenn does that as
Right.
part of their due diligence. They have to know what the pitfalls might be before they decide if they want to buy it.
Do we know if they have, I'm not asking for an answer now, but do we know if they have if who did the report were these environmental specialists? Were
No, we
these?
don't know.
We don't know. It would be nice to find out who did the report for Mid-Penn.
We will find out eventually if this moves forward.
Great, thank you.
Is there anybody else that either has not yet made a comment or would like to make an additional comment? Okay, thank you all. I'm gonna close public comment right now, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around to, actually I have one more person. We have a council member who's a resident of the community, and she would like to speak to this issue as a private citizen.
You want me to pop it up?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead. Hello. First of all, thanks to everybody for showing up this evening. And I do want to clarify that I'm making these statements as a private citizen. So the first thing that I wanted to ask is, what is considered low income in order to qualify for this potential development, and who receives priority? Another thing is, I just want to make a point. I work in, you can imagine, Novato every day. And it takes me 20 minutes to go from 7th and Highway 1 to Rockaway Beach. 20 minutes every morning. If the amount of cars that we're talking about comes in here, I can't even imagine how horrific that commute will become. The next thing is that I'd like to say that I respect and Supervisor Horsley quite a bit, and I realize that he wants to create affordable housing for his teachers, his staff, and the public servants within San Mateo County. He's been very vocal about that. But at what point do the needs of the existing residents and the existing community supersede the needs of those who might one day live here? And what is to guarantee that those moving in will even be those teachers and the other public servants that he says he wants to accommodate? We are his constituents, and we are here right now. So I feel that our needs should be what is taken into account before those who don't even live here. We have been crying out for a community center for quite some time now. It seems to me that's a perfect spot for it. Why aren't we having that conversation? And the last thing that I wanted to say is, this is sort of on a personal issue. Years ago, I got divorced, and I needed to move out of the house, and I had 2 small kids. And fortunately, there was a development that was going in Carlsbad, and part of that development was that they were going to allow, I mean, they had to build some low-income or affordable housing units. And I qualified for one of those units, and I was so excited because I had a place I could move into and afford to live with my 2 kids, and it was brand new. And I'm not saying that this happens in every single situation, but I can tell you that the vast majority of my neighbors within that complex didn't have cars and had multiple children and large families, and within a short amount of time there were way more people living in the units than were supposed to. And my personal experience is one that it was there for me when I needed it, but it became something that I didn't want to stay a part of because, unfortunately, it just didn't support the needs of a community that really doesn't have the transportation resources and the financial resources that you need to be in certain places. And I think this is one of those places. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, I'm now going to close public comment, and what we do at this point is we go around and let the council members say what their personal statements are, their statements as members of the council. Erin, I'm going to bypass you. We'll do you last since you just went. Claire?
I'll pass for right now.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to take a very contrarian attitude in some of these comments. I'll start the timer on myself. Affordable housing and low-income housing do not mean poor, subsidized people on welfare by any means. A lot of the people who work on the coast would fall within those limits. There are people who work on the coast who commute to the coast. I see traffic coming into 92 and Highway 1 every morning coming into the area because people can't afford to live here and they work here. So I would like to see the focus be on what we would like Mid-Penn to provide and the limits we would like them to provide to make this work. Remembering that if they decide not to go forward, either because of community opposition or because they think it can't work, the property still remains. And when we were talking about the Spotty Skate Park, there was a lot of discussion about, well, why don't we buy that as open space or parkland? I was unable to come up with anybody who was willing to work on it. The county was not willing to work on it or provide money. If the community wants that, the community has to form some kind of an organization to buy that land, because it is not coming from somewhere else. There might be some grants available for part of it, but somebody has to put the effort into it. So if we don't buy it as open space or parkland, it is going to be developed sooner or later. And sometimes it takes something like this. Sometimes it takes something like this to galvanize a community. But don't just complain, act. So I would like to see some focus on what amenities could be provided as part of this. So community center, park, some aspect of transportation, subsidizing the buses, not necessarily a wider highway, not necessarily a signal at Carlos or 16th. I do think we need affordable housing on the coast. I know a lot of people who are looking for housing. They can't find it. It's not going to happen by itself. It takes a nonprofit to do it. I would much rather see a reputable nonprofit doing it than a for-profit developer. And low income limits are on the county website. I was just starting to look at them. They're not all that low, but they would qualify a lot of people who work on the coast and can't live here.
Thank you, Dave. Claire?
Yeah, I actually agree with a lot of what you're saying. I hate to see it developed willy-nilly. If it had to be developed, I think Mid-Penn's general reputation is good, but I certainly want to know more about it. What does concern me is looking at the information on the MCC page. There are two other large, relatively large potential projects that could be also, I guess if they're going to be developed at all, have to include some affordable housing units. And I really would like to see if there's any way at all possible to come up with a position that would address all three of those properties, at least in theory, before we do it just piecemeal. Well, this sounds good here, but what about next thing we're going to do is something else in another place and not make it all cohesive in terms of overall general planning. So that's something that I'm not sure how we can do it, but I would like to see if there's a way to include the overall plan in whatever we recommend.
Thank you, Claire. Laura?
Chris, could you review for me what the process is going to be from following tonight?
Right.
With this project?
So currently, Midpenn has a, I think it's called an offer, an options, thank you. It was an O word. An option on this property, but they have not purchased this property. They do not own this property. So we're here tonight to introduce Midpenn to the community, let the community have their input so that Midpenn can hear that, factor into their decision making. Do they want to go forward given what they've heard or not? We don't know. That's their decision still to make. The Midpenn has scheduled an open house, community open house for March 16th for Farallon View Elementary School, in which they will be actively soliciting specific input about what people want to see or don't want to see. So that I believe at that time they can either finalize their purchase option or if they've already purchased, begin to develop a design plan. That is my understanding.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's taken the time to come out at this point in the process and spend this much time with us to let us know what you think. I'm not prepared to comment on this right now. I certainly hear all of the concerns that you have. I don't think we have enough information as far as I'm concerned, and so I'm going to leave it where it is right now until we hear more from Midcoast.
Thank you, Laura. Lisa.
Well, I agree with a lot of what Dave was saying. I don't deny there's problems with the increased traffic and on the highway as well, these small streets in that neighborhood. However, we do need affordable housing on the coast side. I'm acutely aware of this living at Pillar Ridge because we're really the only place for local workers. And I don't have the statistics, but as far as just the general neighborhoods in the Midcoast, the single-family homes, the percentage of those people who have to drive elsewhere for a job so that they can afford that house, compared to the percentage of people who live in Pillar Ridge who can afford to live there and have a coastside job, whether it be as a teacher or in a restaurant or retail or whatever we have to support our local community. And with the housing situation and costs around here so high, our community is full. We took the sign down out front. There's like nothing for sale there, and if something comes up for sale, it's gone in a second, because we have nonprofit ownership and we have rent control. But I mean, this is just another evidence of this real need for more affordable housing. This is not for people to work elsewhere. This is for people to work here locally. Now, as far as, you know, and the economy, that's what we have most at Pillar Ridge. So I don't know what the what restrictions they could put on. I'm sure Mid-Penn knows more about that. Somehow it was arranged that Moon Ridge, anybody living in Moon Ridge has to have one person in the household who works in farming or agriculture. I believe that's how it works. And I think if you don't get federal funding, and I think you have more leeway in restrictions. But anyway, I know that Supervisor Horsley is on the county housing task force with is it Glenn Slocum? And they've been working on projects over the hill. I don't know any details, but about teacher housing, I think there's something happening on one of the college campuses or something. But I mean, there really is a crisis for affordable housing in the county. And I understand we have these issues with traffic and all, and why would we want to have more people come here and then work elsewhere? No, but I think if this can be managed so that the people living there work on the coast side, I think there's merit to it. And if this could be designed so that the development was no denser than the surrounding single-family communities, I mean, those are 5,000 square foot parcels, and there's 11 acres, and you do the math, you come up with, I don't know, 90 homes, whatever it is. And okay, so that's still a lot of new cars, but we see the planning permits coming through here, the applications. And already, there's been more applications this year than the build-out limit. So, and they're sprinkled all around, but I mean, you're gonna fill in all those lots. I mean, people don't get upset when they're sprinkled around, but there's that many more cars on the road anyway. And so there, the county, how can they deny development on this parcel and yet allow the others? They're legally in an awkward position. So I think I'm done now. Thank you.
I have a question.
Unfortunately, public comment is closed, and so this is a one-way discussion where we're now hearing what the council has to feel about. I made my best effort to get everybody's comment during public comment. Now it's council comment. Laura?
You just spurred a question for me. There is a federal mandate. I know that we go through how much affordable housing needs to be present in each area. Does anybody, I'm ignorant about the actual details around that. Does anyone on the council have further information on that?
As this we don't need to go to a federal mandate, but if you look in the LCP, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And it
Right, the LCP.
Yeah, and it lays out that fair share or whatever, and they have it divided 50-50 between Half Moon Bay City and the Midcoast. So, I mean, we don't have to know all that. I mean, the federal
I don't mean,
that's
I guess I don't mean federal, I meant
afield.
LCP, and I'm trying to, because I know that certain sites have been identified, and I just don't know how that works. But I can save that for another time.
I think it's important to just reiterate that the MCC is an advisory council to the Board of Supervisors. We don't get to make any of these decisions. We can provide this forum for you. We can help get information out to you, and whatever way we can be helpful, but it's not our decision.
We do not have budget authority or policy-making authority.
We're saying one more thing.
Dave?
So, on my line about buying that property, somebody suggested rezoning it so nothing can be built. That is illegal in California. That's called taking. You can't do that. You have to actually buy the property at fair market value or allow them to use it for something. So we can't just rezone this project out of existence.
Dan?
Yes. So clearly in this room tonight, it has resonated that the community is prefer to have it kept all or mostly a community park. Traffic, everybody knows, is a real concern, whether it's added traffic entering at a very difficult location or if it's added traffic through the local neighborhoods. And as Lisa just mentioned, what we have now, you know, yes, beyond what's Mid-Penn is proposing, you know, we have the added traffic from Big Wave to look forward to. We have added traffic for all the other build-outs to look forward to. So all of this must, eventually we will, you know, be faced. And, you know, when is enough enough? You know, another thing that resonated, you know, anything that would fundamentally change the character of our community. And, you know, it's all of the Midcoast has a similar feel to it. And should that be changed so drastically? And all this development, you know, we're still in a drought. You know, I heard tonight that I guess the Montero Water District, you know, they have their wells and they're pumping out pretty good, but you know the state's still in a drought, so you know, that should be considered. And so that's all I have to say. I thank everyone for coming out and voicing their concerns. I think it was very important.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
Dave, a question for you. You talked about buying it as open space and parkland. Just briefly, how would that work?
An organization like Midcoast Parklands would have to be formed, probably a 501c3, and probably have to get funding, grants. Probably people would have to drum up money, kick in money themselves, and that's assuming it isn't already purchased by Mid-Penn. Mid-Penn turns down its option. You know, if somebody wants to buy that property, they have to get in before somebody else makes a better offer. I'm more than willing to work with anybody who wants to do that. I don't have any particular background, but I know there's people in this room who do. And there's other people in the community who do. So we can tap some of that knowledge.
Nice, that's a great offer, Dave.
The community came together to buy the Montero Water Sanitation District. I mean, I don't know if that was under a 501c as you described.
No, that was for profit and required special state legislation.
They took it by eminent domain. Montero Water and Sanitary took it by eminent domain.
So that was under a different thing altogether, from what you're talking about.
Montero Water and Sanitary has money.
We're giving it to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. Yes, right, but it was purchased by the community. It's owned by the community, even though it was originally private.
The community voted for the bonds that would finance the purchase.
So it was through bond money, right? Is that another option here?
Yeah, bonds are an option, but getting somebody to buy your bonds, if you don't have any way to pay them back, not so easy to do.
Okay, Aaron.
Okay, so now I'm making a comment as a council member. So the first thing that I would like to say is this may be a done deal, as you said. I don't know where things stand at this point in time. However, if we still do have a window of opportunity, as a fellow council member, Dave, I absolutely would be willing to work with you to try to figure something out. And I would hope and assume that everybody in here would be on board to help out as well, because nothing happens in a vacuum.
Great. Erin, are you done?
I am done.
Thank you.
So, the issues that have been brought up here about added traffic from this development, and then I mentioned that, there's already over 40 units a year coming along to be developed that nobody's noticing. This is all part of Connect the Coast side. It was also brought up, piecemeal versus, let's plan for the whole picture. So that's what the comprehensive transportation management plan is supposed to do. It's supposed to look at build out. If we build out all these in all these parcels, what are we going to be left with transportation? And this is the time and in March, so be watching for this, because there's a TAC meeting coming up, and they usually come to us 6 weeks later, and then there'll be a public workshop, and they're going to have a land use report finally. And basically, this is looking at ways to reduce build out. In other words, to combine parcels or retire development rights, different methods that can be used to reduce potential build out. And so be watching for that, and come to the meeting and give your input. I'm sure the county will have a workshop at a larger venue for that.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Dave, you better start your timer. As I mentioned, I can get passionate, and sometimes it just flows. So I definitely hear what the community's saying, and I am definitely sympathetic, as people have heard many times. Grew up in a small town that was all single family, out in the country, no bus line service, town of less than 5,000, and that town is now ruined. It's now a city with cheap apartments and traffic, and there's almost none of the original character of that town. I'm going there next week, and it's a sad time every time I go there. So that's one of the reasons my wife and I moved here. It reminds me of where I grew up. So I feel very protective of the Midcoast, and I don't want it to change either. But I'm conflicted, because I feel that MidPenn is a quality organization. I don't feel that they are trying to do anything deceptive or underhanded or ruin the community. Now, the question is, are these two things incompatible? Are they just fundamentally incompatible?
Yes.
Right. And I'm hearing that residents who live here, who live near the site, feel that that is true. So, as a member of the community, as a representative for the people sitting out here, I take that on. I accept that. What are we going to do going forward? Dave has offered a suggestion of what can happen. MidPenn still has a decision to make whether they want to purchase it. I think it's important to understand what's been said here a few times. If MidPenn doesn't purchase it, then it's still available. Then somebody else could purchase it, whether it's a community group or a for-profit developer who maybe is going to do something, that we just can't even conceive of how bad that might be. I don't have an answer right now. I don't think the council does. There's many questions that I don't feel like I can make any kind of definitive statement of whether I support or oppose, because there technically right now is nothing to support or oppose. Am I supporting or opposing MidPenn's option to purchase? I can't say, because as Dave said, not that I can't say, I don't know what to say. As Dave said, he has made an offer in the past related to this project, and there wasn't a groundswell of support. I believe that if that, in going forward in the future, like with Moss Beach Park, there would be a groundswell of support moving forward on something here. I presented to the members of this community here, many of whom I've seen in relation to other important community projects like Moss Beach Park, to rally yourselves and start working as a group towards that goal. The MCC is going to continue to be on top of this. This meeting tonight is very important to the MCC. See what I mean? I'm just getting started. I want to hear more from Mid-Penn, more information, like we hear that this is for affordable housing for Midcoast residents, but how is that going to work? How do we know? What are some benchmarking? Well, give me an example of an affordable income profession or job. You know, what are we looking at? Are those jobs that even exist here? Okay, so these are questions. The environmental study, what did that reveal? Sorry. I would like to see some nominal plan before I automatically say no way, no how. We don't know. What if the plan is 10 units? Somebody made a point that I think will be very telling on how many units get built. What's the break-even point? You know, how many units have to be built here to make this economically viable? That's a piece of information, and until I hear that, I don't feel like I can make it, like Laura said, I don't feel like I can make a absolute determination yet. You know how my personal feelings are based on how I started this, where I grew up. Okay, but the reality is every day there's more people in the world, and those people have to go somewhere. And the LCP has identified the site as affordable housing. Our task, or your task, if you don't want Mid-Penn to develop X amount of units here, is come up with an alternative option. That's because, and not that, I mean, again, I feel that Mid-Penn is a quality organization. I would welcome them into the community. That doesn't mean that I want a bunch of units there, okay? That's not what I'm saying. They're a quality organization that I would welcome into the community. Is there some way that it could be made to work? Maybe not. That's yet to be determined. And so I'm not saying that Mid-Penn is the devil, but you know this phrase, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So we know Mid-Penn has come and introduced themselves. We know about Mid-Penn. If we send Mid-Penn packing, who's next? Who's knocking on the door next? Hope maybe it'll be a group of Moss Beach citizens. Thank you very much. One last thing. I know that this is a difficult topic, and I really, really appreciate the way that people spoke tonight. Both your passion, your emotion, but also your respectfulness. Really, this goes a long way, I think, towards Mid-Penn's decision-making, towards Supervisor Horsley's decision-making, and it reflects very well on the entire Midcoast. And I thank you for your professional respect tonight. That said, I'm now going to close this agenda item, and we have a couple more items on the agenda. My guess is that most people are not going to stick around for that. So I'm just going to pause for 2 minutes. If anybody.
Oh, wait a minute, I have something to announce before anybody
Okay,
hears.
Lisa has an important announcement.
Oh, God. Okay.
Here we go.
The Coastal Commission voted 7-5 to dismiss Charles Lester.
Are you fucking kidding me? After 20,000 people sent in letters?
40,000.
40,000 people sent in letters?
They have dismissed Executive Director Charles Lester.
Oh, my God.
Let me
You have
just.
7 votes.
Are you sure? Because they're clapping
I'm
on
reading here. Breaking news, California Coastal Commission votes 7-5 to dismiss. Okay, I have a couple of notes to read to you. That's why I was late tonight, because I was watching this. Hold on, my hand's shaking.
While Lisa says this, let me just say that not to discount this topic or the emotion put out here, this is an immediate and terrible threat to our community right here. I mean, our community would not be like this without the Coastal Commission. I saw it on Lisa's face when she came in today, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, well, maybe she just, saw a dead raccoon or something.
No, I just read this just now, just this minute. When I came in, it was going well. Okay, so they had some comment. This hearing was phenomenal. The quality of the testimony, there were 680 people there from all over the state. There was, 20,000 people, letters, and okay, so after the, Steve Monowitz, the county community development director, was there, and he spoke in support of Lester. He said we shouldn't be here to consider firing him. We should be paying him tribute and celebrating him. Then at the wrap-up, okay, so they started out an open session with the, everybody was asking them not to go into closed session for their decision. And they started out, Mary Schallenberger, then Carol Groom spoke. She's a coastal commissioner, she's also a county supervisor. She said that Lester's accomplishments attest to his leadership. She said on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley that he was very pleased with Coastal Commission staff and that covers the county coast. And Carol Groom said she was in full and complete support for Charles Lester. And then there was some more, and then they went into closed session, and so all we know is the, I can't believe, you should have heard the testimony at that meeting.
Well, I think you can understand how Lisa feels personally, and I guess I've betrayed my personal feelings on this. Just to give you background, the MCC wrote a letter of support in support of Dr. Charles Lester that we passed last week, or last meeting.
To the Board of Supervisors.
To the Board of Supervisors. We also CC'd our state senator and our state assembly people.
Well, let me mention, State Senator Jerry Hill signed on a group letter from state legislators in support of Charles Lester.
Can this be overturned by the governor?
They can legally fire the executive director.
Well, I'm sorry to leave everybody with that bad news, but
Does it say where the votes came from? Who were
We'll
the
get
votes?
that, I don't have it right now.
You can kind of talk because they all make comments
It will
before
be
they went into
published.
closed session.
How do you ignore 40,000 letters? How do you ignore 40,000? Well, it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious.
So we've got council activity.
Are we gonna have a report?
She already did it.
Oh, I came late.
Came very late.
You came later than I
But it was for a good cause.
Karen, do you have anything, council activity?
All right, I do not.
Dan?
I'm done. Dan, anything, council activity? No. Claire? No. He doesn't.
I do have a council activity, which Chris is probably going to report on anyway. I attended the GCSD Park Advisory Committee meeting on Monday night. They went through the list of projects they had and added 2 more and prioritized their list of 12 for handing off to the GCSD board. They'll have another meeting probably in mid-March.
Actually, the next, I don't have my.
Well, they hadn't quite selected the date. They tentatively selected a date, but it wasn't clear everybody could make it.
Right, right.
May I make a request that one or the other of you send me a written report for my minutes?
Okay.
Sure.
That would
You
help.
better find out which one it's going to be.
You want to do it, Dave, or you want me to do it? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dave.
point.
Appreciate it. Is that it, Dave?
That's all I have.
Okay. Claire?
No.
There's a TAC meeting this coming next week.
TAC
what
for,
meeting?
Oh, for Connect the Coast Side, and that's what Lisa was speaking about.
yep. Good.
I do have one other thing that's sort of hearsay, but Community Choice Energy is now up to 16 of the 19 required communities. So there were 2 more meeting tonight, and it sounded like they were probably going to get it. So it sounds like CCE is likely to get the number of partners they need to go ahead.
Oh, do we need to do something about that?
Nope.
Nope.
We did our part by having information meetings.
Right. Lisa?
Did you report on the 7th Street fence?
Yes, and it was removed.
Yes.
There are bollards.
Yes, so I have taken pictures, I haven't posted it yet. When we commented on that permit for the planning commission, we asked that the hedge at the end of the street also be removed. It's non-invasive, I mean, it's invasive shrubs that grow naturally to 12 feet tall. And anyway, so the hedge is still there. And so I think that we need to make a separate new request to DPW to please remove the hedge. And I would suggest that probably I could just do that, since or if you prefer, we could have a letter to approve.
I thought you earned that.
Is this for the fence?
It's been a long uphill battle, but and I wasn't sure if you're drinking alcohol, so I was kid champagne.
Thank you.
So, since we've already authorized letters on that, and you're sort of our negotiator with the county, I think it's fine. I don't
We
think
already
need-
had laid out our arguments
right,
in
I don't
the
think we need
approved
another
letter.
agenda item for it.
So
What do you think, Chair?
Well, I don't know how much we can discuss this at this point, but I do have an issue with the bright yellow bollards.
There's nothing that can be done about that.
There's not white bollards elsewhere?
No. It was recommended at the planning commission that DPW be allowed to use their standards for the color of the bollards, and that's what they decided was appropriate. I see no hope for that.
Okay.
I do think it's worth, as tired as I am of this effort, I do think it's worth asking,
Erin, we have to give
Uh,
this back to you.
This is for the
She
fence,
might need that
not the
tonight.
hedge. It's worth to try and get the hedge down, and Karen's going crazy anyway. Anyway, whatever. The other thing I had to say was.
So, before we move on, so do you want this on the agenda for the next meeting?
This would
Or
be,
do we just tell
this
them
would
to
be
go?
Lisa writing a letter asking that the hedge be
Just an
removed.
email to
Yeah, no, that,
Porter or Dana
that,
Schuster.
I'm
Just
fine
the
with that.
follow-up
Yeah,
email
I'm
to
fine
what
with,
we've already
that's,
Yeah.
We already
yeah,
covered this.
that's a
Yeah,
no,
just to remind them
no-brainer.
we had this and what we had asked for before.
Yes, please
Okay.
do.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing was the Capistrano Road flashing beacons. Did you write that?
Yes, I should have reported on that.
Why don't you report on
I
it?
will report on that. So I attended the Harbor Commission meeting last week. They had it on their agenda as item 8. It was looking like it was just gonna go down to defeat. The staff wanted all kinds of conditions. It started turning around, and then it got turned into, why don't we incorporate this into a study of all the pedestrian and bicycle issues in the Harbor District property? And referred to their Public Safety Commission, which meets monthly, except that it hasn't met for many, many months. So I said I would provide pointers to documents on the traffic studies that we had on the website, and that I would attend one of their public safety meetings on this. Subsequently, we had a conversation among a non-quorum of the council and decided that we would rather not have the Harbor District distracted on this. So I did incorporate a slightly modified version of suggested wording on that back to the Harbor Commission Secretary. So we are basically sort of bowing out of this. We are on record as wanting them to approve getting rid of the flashing lights, and if they choose to incorporate it into a study, I will personally provide a little bit of expertise, but the council itself will not be involved.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to not lose track that our request about this light was to DPW because it's a county road. And it was never our intention to have this be a Harbor Commission research project, distracting them from the important things that they have to do. And so therefore, I urge Dave to not add to this and to say we withdraw our request. I don't think it's up to the Harbor District to design Capistrano Road.
Yeah.
They got more harbor-related things to do, so that was my thought on that.
Makes
So,
sense.
maybe we can, someday when Plan Princeton's done, maybe we'll get some comprehensive, crossing treatment on Capistrano.
The one thing that came out of this was the sign was put in with an encroachment permit. And as we know from the 7th Street fence, encroachment permits can be revoked. So if nothing happens on this for some period of time, we can go back to DPW and say, can we revoke the encroachment permit? We referred it to the Harbor District. They didn't have any input. Let's just do it. But that's for the long distant future.
Great, thank you. Okay. As Dave mentioned, attended the Granada Community Services District Parks Subcommittee meeting on Monday. They really had two major agenda items. One, develop a list of action items for 2016 to present to the board for their voting on what they wanted to move forward on. The other thing was an inventory of district properties, and that's what this map is right behind you on the wall.
All these green areas.
To the green areas. Just do an inventory to figure out, like, okay, what assets do we have? Where, if we were gonna build some of these things we're talking about, where could they go? Do we need to acquire other land that is more suited for some of these things?
Some of which things?
Some of the, well, they had a list of 12 things. Let me see if I've got my list here. I think I left it at home. 'Cause
I don't have the final list because they kept rewording it.
they did reword the list several times, and no, I don't have it with me, I'm sorry.
I'll have to get it.
I will bring it at the next meeting. The main comment I had for them, and that I've made to them several times, is they had a list of 10, then they added 2 more things. But the list is very, and this was purportedly for 2016, but they had general things on there like create a skate park. Well, I don't think anybody here is gonna question it when you say it's never gonna have a skate park built in a year. So what does that mean? Create a skate park, that's what they're gonna do for 2016. So what I've asked them many times is to develop some kind of spreadsheet that has short, mid, and long-term priorities. And so we can see, like, short-term for priority, we're gonna get a bench put in here. This is a short-term priority, we can get this done in the next year or so. A 5-year project might be a skate park. We've got to do permitting, we've got to have design, that's something, and we can start here, but it's gonna be and then there's gonna be larger projects like a community center or something where we've got to start and monitor progress towards that. The feedback I got from the committee was that, well, these are all for 2016, and you can kind of see that, and we don't want to say, like, if we say create a skate park for 2016, I mean, we don't want to take that off of there because then it'll never happen. And what I'm saying is, you've got to have these 3 different types of projects going all on at the same time. And so create a skate park, what I would like to see is some kind of spreadsheet or something that says, create a skate park starting in 2016 with an estimated completion date of, let's say, 2020. In year 1, 2016, for our list of priorities for 2016, this is what we're gonna do about the skate park. We're gonna, benchmark against other communities or something. But to have just create a skate park for 2016, I don't know what that means. And then
Project management.
What?
Project management. You gotta have your steps.
Yeah, exactly. And per project management, another comment I had was a lot of their things had plan this, plan that. Okay, I mean, yeah, you gotta start with a plan, but what exactly does that mean? I mean, for 2016, you're gonna have the whole plan, you're gonna start the plan, you're gonna send out bids for an architect, I mean, what? So I just asked for more specificity and like 3 different tiers of projects, because I just feel, per a comment made to me by Marlene Finley of County Parks Director, GCSD has signed a 2-year management contract with County Parks. 1 year of that contract is already done and nothing has happened. So GCSD has paid for a year of parks management assistance and they've done nothing. And so without this 3-tiered list of projects, how are we gonna motivate to get something done, to get a shovel in the ground in 2016 when we're having things on the list like create a skate park? So that was some comments I made to them. I think they did hear that a little bit, and they identified a couple of things with the idea of, like, we've got to do something right now to show people that we've taken these powers and we're doing what people wanted us to. So I look forward to the next meeting. We'll see. The other meeting I attended on Monday was the Portola Trail Committee meeting. San Mateo County is kind of the vanguard of a loose movement to develop a national historic trail running from Tubac, Arizona, southern Arizona, up the coast of California, terminating at Sweeney Ridge, which is considered the San Francisco Bay discovery site that Gaspar de Portola discovered San Francisco Bay there in 1769. So they're looking at putting together a historic trail like there are several other historic and scenic trails in the national park system. Each county has to kind of work on this on their own, and ultimately a congressional delegation must be put together to move this forward. So this has something that has to be done by Congress eventually. But to get to that point, the counties have to work together to identify the routes, identify property issues, and other things like that. San Mateo County, maybe because this is where the terminus of the trail is way ahead of every other county on this in terms of identifying the route, even having, and most of that route is amazingly on public land. The route has been scouted once before. I think Supervisor Horsley said he took a horse ride through it. So we are way ahead. So the park system is kind of the national park system is kind of looking to San Mateo County to lead this venture. There was about, I would say, 20 to 25 people there. And you know, all the big groups, Supervisor Horsley was there, CCC was there, State Coastal Conservancy, County Parks, Anna Eshu's office, Jerry Hill's office, Kevin Mullen's office, GGNRA, Post, Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, San Mateo Historical Society, San Mateo County Parks Commission. I mean, there's a lot of important players here, stakeholders. It's not quite clear what the next step is the problem is that this is such a big issue, so many things to gather together that we're not really sure. Supervisor Horsley said he will call another meeting. Even that is like, we're not sure when that's gonna happen. So,
At least started.
it has started, and the meeting was there. If I could just add 2 more minutes to this meeting, one comment I made is that it's being benchmarked against the Juan de Anza Trail, which is another national historic trail that runs through Arizona and up through California. There was a recreation of that journey in 1976. And from that recreation of that journey bubbled up a groundswell of public support for making this a national historic trail. But it was still 7 years later till even the feasibility study was done. What I pointed out to the group was, so what happened in 1976? Well, it was our bicentennial. There was just an overflowing feeling of American history and like doing things related to American history and whatnot. What's going to be the impetus in 2016 or 2019? 2019 is the 250-year anniversary of this discovery of San Francisco Bay. So maybe it could be kind of built around that. There's going to have to be some kind of public outreach, public PR campaign for this. The other point I made is the Portola Trail really is very parallel to the Anza Trail. So 2 points I made were, we're going to have another National Historic Trail that's almost an identical route, very similar route, which that's okay. They're about 50 miles apart. One's inland, one's on the coast, so there's difference there. But we're going to name this very similar, very geographically close trail for another European explorer. I mean, especially since the 6 camps where this group stopped in San Mateo County on their way up to the discovery site were all at, 4 of them were at Native American villages. We know what happened to Native Americans once the Europeans got here, especially because Portola's discovery opened up the mission system for Northern California. And the mission system, I mean, you can say what you want about it. In my opinion, it was basically a slavery system. And so do we want to be highlighting that? Could we rename it or have the emphasis be on Native Americans or Native Californians or even just a general California discovery trail? So that comment was taken with with a grain of salt, but also heard. So it's my hope that if there is a trail, that it is not named the Portola Trail. And that is all that tomorrow we have a co-sign design review meeting. There's per what Lisa has been saying, there's five projects on the list. I can remember a couple years ago, we might have had one or two. A couple times we had the meeting canceled because there were no projects. Now every meeting, there's at least 4 or 5. These meetings are running many, many hours because of the amount of projects.
At some point, when you reach 40, do you say no more applications?
It's the building permit phase. They only can issue 40 building permits per year.
And this precedes the building permit?
Yeah. First you get a coastal development permit.
Right.
Then you can apply for a building permit.
We've never addressed, been asked, or had to deal with any kind of cap or limit to the amount. That's handled by planning department. It's not an issue that we deal with. Projects come to us, they've already been vetted by planning for those types of things.
Oh, okay. Do we verify that they don't go over 40?
No.
Actually, I was just thinking it would be nice to, I was thinking to ask Lisa Alsassa for the last few years, the number of building permits for housing in the Midcoast, so we have.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Can I ask a quickie question? I was just sort of wondering, I did look at your great page on affordable housing, and I was just wondering, so one of the things that I had a question about was the growth rate limit, and so it says in here, new units with affordability restrictions, which is like what we were talking about tonight, right? For low and moderate income can exceed the 40 unit per year limit at not, so that a 3-year average would exceed that limit. So what I'm assuming that means is within a 3-year span, you can't build more than 120 units. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, that's why I want to know the last few years of the
Right,
number,
so
yeah.
but my question then is, let's just say we have a big housing development, right? Could you do like 120 in year 1 and then do like 10-10, or, I mean, or
Actually,
110, 5-5, or, do you know what I'm saying? Like, so collectively,
So somebody here tonight mentioned throwing out numbers of the size of this future project, and he said he'd read something about 60, and I think what he might have been referring to is, so the LCP for the affordable housing, it says they can build up to 60 per year, but it still falls into that 3-year average. That's what I was explaining.
So
So
they
they
could
could
go
go
60,
up to
30.
they could build up to 60 in 1 year if nobody else, I mean, you know what I mean? They would.
If they weren't competing for anybody
Okay.
else.
Yeah, and that's the
They
thing,
did.
and I don't understand quite, and I will ask Lisa Alsassa at the time, what happens if they, clearly, and we'll get the facts, but, we must be approaching this limit already, and so if they get their project ready and they come in and they wanna build 40 units or 60 units, it's like, well, get in line, I mean,
Yeah, so on January 2nd, they file a building permit for 40 units, or 60 units.
Right.
Then that means nobody else can build anything on the Midcoast that entire year. And only half as many the following year. I don't think that's going to happen.
how does big wave, is that considered like, how many
Oh,
units is
oh,
that?
you'll love this. I'm sorry. A dwelling unit has to have a kitchen.
That's why
Big
Big
Wave,
Wave does not have
they have a
kitchens.
common cafeteria.
So it's,
So those aren't any dwelling units.
oh, I see, so the
It's
people who are
zero
living there aren't
dwelling.
actually dwelling.
Well, they're not living, there's no building there, but
But I
if
mean,
they,
the
if,
theoretical.
They're not cooking.
Yeah, well.
there's no dwelling units there. There's no dwelling units there, so they're not
They're not
subject to the,
recognized as dwelling units.
the definition
Under
of the dwelling
Under
unit.
the zoning code
Yeah.
and the LCP.
Yes.
Can I,
Yes. Yes, Laura.
question for you, there was a discussion about, Marlene, putting together a task force around leash and unleashed areas for dogs. Has that gone anywhere?
I believe that the task force has been assembled, so that it has.
I thought you were on it.
No, no, I'm not. Membership, which she had already assembled her committee. I will, you know what, I will send her an email to follow up on that. But I thought I saw, either I talked to her, got an email or something that the dog, the dog policy subcommittee had been formed.
But when, I read all the Parks Commission agendas and staff reports, and they initially said they were gonna do this because they have a good model with the mini Parks Committee, and they're gonna have 2 Parks Commissioners, and Neil's one of them, on this dog thing,
Yes.
and that they said right off in the beginning that they would have a representative from each of the communities, the MCC, PMAC, just as they did for the mini parks. So we should have someone on that committee.
I will call her
And
about that.
you could ask Neil.
Yeah, I just saw him at the Portola Trail thing.
Yeah.
I'll call Marlene. I mean, I need to speak to her because for Parks meeting in
I would actually like to
April.
ask if she's the correct person, and we enjoyed chit-chatting with her. Does she oversee Graywell Cove and also the?
No, that's state.
Those are state parks, not, yeah, okay.
That's
Devil's
Shepherd.
Slide is a county park,
Oh, okay.
but
this-
Graywell Cove is
Graywell,
state.
who's
Shepherd, he's the
Oh,
supervisor.
maybe I'll get his information. Anyway, on Saturday, I was heading northbound on Highway 1, and I saw a girl in a bikini posing on a motorcycle on the other side of the guardrail at the top of the cliff, right in front of, and I'm like, I don't know how they humped that motorcycle up over the thing, but at any rate, I'm like, doesn't anybody come by
Darwin
here and
Award in the making.
check on the safety of the
Because they don't read the local newspaper that somebody died there a couple weeks ago.
Was she in a bikini? No, this is just
It was a
Saturday.
he. It was a he. He may have been in a bikini. I'm not sure, but yeah. Okay. Coming agenda. So for February 24th, we have nothing on the agenda. I'm going to be out of town next week, so I'm a bit. I know we can cancel meetings, and we don't have to have a meeting. I would love to not have to cancel the meeting, but we have nothing on the agenda. So in the next few days, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
At our last meeting, there was a report from Chris Hunter that that he was doing a grant application for the shuttle, from a weekend free shuttle, and that we would be asked for a support letter for that. And the reason I ask you now is we're looking at our agenda, if we need to approve a letter, if this is imminent, or whether it can wait until March.
Great question. I will follow up with Chris to
Hopefully,
find
we
out.
don't have to have a meeting just to approve that letter.
And not everybody was here when you announced that the 16th Street crossing project did not get funded, which also probably relates to this, what people should think about this project that's presented tonight.
Yeah, so the request for the Transportation Authority's Measure A funding for pedestrian and bicycle-oriented projects was our project, or the 16th Street project that we applied for, was not one of the 10 that made it through. We were actually number 12 on the list, and I believe the project just above us that also did not make the cutoff is about $1 million. So, anyway.
Do we get any
What I also
rationale
did
for that?
report, I can follow up to see if there's any additional information on that. But Supervisor Horsley and the county will continue thinking about other funding opportunities that we may be able to apply to bring that project to life.
As far as the free shuttle, the free weekend shuttle, when, if you can find out when that letter would be needed?
Yeah, I know Chris is working on it, but I can find out what the status is.
And then I would just like to say to the council, would somebody like to volunteer to write that letter?
Sure, I'll write it.
Look how that worked out.
Well, you've
said sure you
expressed
would.
interest in correspondence. I thought you might want to,
Well, I don't want to
do
take it
that.
away from you.
Oh, no, you seem like he jumped right in. Maybe perhaps David likes some assistance or some editorial assistance.
I would love editorial assistance.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Dave and Aaron. Great. So we may or may not be dealing with that in the coming couple of weeks. In the next few days, if anything comes to mind as a great agenda item. I don't want to manufacture agenda items. That seems pointless. But I also hate to miss an opportunity for having a public meeting. So right now, there's nothing. I'd like to have something, but we'll make that decision as we get closer to the weekend, next weekend. Again, I'm going to be gone all week, so.
We can have a post-mortem analysis on Mavericks.
Yeah, oh, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get cartel management in here, we can have Steve McGrath and,
We've
what-
had a busy month with retreat and all.
yeah.
And if there's nothing pressing, I think skipping the 24th would be great.
Okay, well, we'll I'll definitely leave that open. I won't lose sleep about it anymore then. I have been losing sleep about it, but I won't, and we'll see what happens. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about coming? Aaron, do you think we'll have Sister Cities
Yes, we definitely
in March? Great, okay. Unless anybody has anything else, we're adjourned. Good meeting, everybody.